Hello, good morning to you all. Welcome to the 2023 verdict. I know you know what I was about to say. Well, glad to join you all today. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
It does take a while to get used to, but it is what it is. The 2023 verdict. And I have to learn to say it right, because yesterday I think I said 2023 verdict, and I remember, oh, the verdict. No, it's the 2023 verdict. And we're going to be on this program for a while. So I guess when we're done, maybe we'll have to learn to, you know, say...
Unlearn it, huh? Okay.
Perhaps.
No problem.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Maukwe Ogun Yusuf.
And I was the first to be culpable yesterday when I said this Sunrise Daily. But this is the 2023 verdict. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
The first clue for me are the colors. It's all green and white. And it's not sunrise, so hey. But it's still the 2023 verdict. The crew is still here doing you good. Today is the 7th day in the month of February 2023. That reminder couldn't be any better. Maya Makinde, welcome to the program.
Yes, indeed. So we've not, you of course, you can always get across to us. So, yes, you know the handle with which you can do that. You could hashtag 2023 verdict. So if you follow the conversation online, we should be able to track your messages. And then you can send us an email as well. So you see the 2023 verdict at, there you go, channelstv.com and Sunrise Daily at channelstv.com, because yes, indeed, that is still very much up and running. So now today, on our News Today bit, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, is expected to visit the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And as you know, look, in spite of, it's so happening so fast now, thick and fast, a frenzy out there, several meetings, persons going to court to challenge certain things. People can't access funds to do a thing or two. And then fuel, what about fuel? How will they move on? Yes, the INEC chairman did meet with NNPC. He met with logistics, NURTW. So all of those components are equally important. And I do know that the matter about the CBN came up not just now in terms of several things. First, where to store the equipment, and who knows. Now, this currency redesign saga, by the way, the president says to give him how many days? 7 days. So what's going to happen at that point in time? But all of these things, they certainly may just have a huge impact on these elections. But this meeting, you never can tell. This meeting could work wonders.
Well, we'll look forward to see what the outcome will be. I mean, it's a meeting expected to happen today. As you rightly pointed out, Chamberlain, he's been meeting with critical stakeholders. As INEC has constantly emphasized, this election is a multi-stakeholder venture. Yes, they are the lead agency. They are the ones in charge of conducting the elections, but it depends heavily on the success recorded by many other stakeholders. For instance, security and how they carry out their work before or on that day. You also have now logistics. I mean, he's met with NURTW, NATO, etc. He's met with all of them. They also have to be well, he meets with them every time that they have elections. He meets with them. But in this particular instance, we've been saying how fuel has been scarce, and so he's also had cause to meet with the GMD of the NNPCL. This is what we currently have on, on our hands right now. And he's been assured that indeed there's going to be the provision of petrol for those who need to carry out logistics on that particular day. You also pointed out the CBN. Before now, I do not recall any other election, or pre-election period where the INEC chairman has had to meet with the CBN governor. But, these are peculiar times. We do know that before now, INEC had cause to say that they would not be storing the materials with the CBN, but I think they've since rescinded that. with the difficulty, as you rightly pointed out, with what everyone is experiencing. I mean, most Nigerians are experiencing with getting currency. I'm sure that he will also be needing assurances that if they need money to be able to pay people, because the people that they will have to pay cash on that day, the people that they will have to, as a result of the logistics challenge that they might have, there are people that it is extremely important for INEC to at least have some, to be liquid, let me put it that way, on the day of the election or pre the election or perhaps even post the election. I know that a lot of the transactions might be done online, but I mean, nonetheless, you will still need some cash to get things done on the day. And I want to believe that, perhaps special arrangements will be made for INEC to ensure that they have all that they need. But let us see how that meeting goes. We do not know what the meeting is. We are only speculating, considering all that is currently going on. I'm sure by the time the INEC chairman is done, we will have very clear insights as to what the meeting was about. That is if they tell us everything.
Oh, yes, indeed. You wish you could be a fly in the wall. These are one of those times that you wish that could be the case. So, Ayo, Buki.
Well, yes, another also in the news today will be the presidential campaign train of the PDP moving to Bauchi today. And the campaign has been on for as long as one can imagine, and it is not just going to stop for whatever reason. Queues or no queues, unfortunately, guys, and it just depends on which side of the divide you find yourself. I think the only appeal we can make is to just ensure that the right things are done by all of us. I mean, look at the Electoral Act from Section 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, and 97. All talk about the process of campaigns, rallies, and all those things. It'll only be fair for us to expect that everyone will abide by these rules. Enough of all this talk about we're not one ruling the party in the state is not allowing other people to do stuff, the opposition party to do stuff in their party. That shouldn't be in our lexicon politically. It should be, we should encourage, free choice. Isn't that the case?
Besides free choice, one of the things that has been missing for voters, is voter education. And voter education is not just about, your conduct and how you vote, on election day, but also about campaigns. And this is why we should emphasize it. Gladly, since Kaduna, the campaigns have been peaceful. There have been less and less reports of violence, but whoever is going to the campaigns today, either as somebody filling up the campaign space, if you're hailing your supporters, hail with caution. If you're rejoicing with your supporters, rejoice with caution. I think it's better for, the voters to reflect more on what your candidates, whether they're presidential, governorship, senatorial, or House of Representatives, reflect more on what they're offering and put them to task on how they're going to deliver it, perhaps not offline, maybe online or using any other medium, such that, you're more circumspect. And whatever is going to happen on the campaign ground, if it doesn't augur well for you, you know how you can protect yourself. There's no profit in going to a campaign ground, and at the end of the day, you return with a broken rib or something less than what you expect as you head out, to support your party candidate. I believe that is where voter education begins ahead of election day. Also on election day, get used to your party logo, whoever you decide to vote for. Remember, your candidate is not on the ballot paper. It's your party logo that is on the ballot paper. So I think to that effect, voters should begin to take responsibility for and how to exercise their franchise.
Well, I'm hoping that, yes, as we build up to the elections, our segment, that will feature the INEC, the electoral umpire regularly, will bring us more and more of these things. Chamberlain.
All right, so there you go. So we'll keep an eye on all of those items and those matters as they play out. So we'll bring you all of those information as much as we can. Just keep it locked here. But we will be back in a moment and take you through some of the dailies here today. Right, welcome back. So quite a number of the dailies highlighting what is going on in the policy and who will believe how many days to election. Well, I reminds us on a daily basis what day it is, and so we need to play our part when he does that and do the calculations and say, how many more days to the elections? And look at the dailies. For instance, if you look at leadership, which is where we'll start off with, because several others highlight a similar scenario this morning on the front pages. Leadership, 3 days to go. Cash crunch worsens. Banks defy CBN on 20,000 Naira over-the-counter payment. So you can understand why that meeting between the chairman of INEC and the CBN could come in really handy. But look at the first of the riders here today on the front page of Leadership newspaper. Mammoth crowd persists at ATMs. There you go. And then Kaduna, Kogi, Zamfara approach Supreme Court. It's become a major stay in our polity now, the courts, and you just wonder, wonders never cease, really. 14 parties to boycott 2023 polls if FG dumps policy. That is what leadership highlights in the, but the last of the rider here says, court bars PMB Emefiele from shifting deadline. Whoa, from shifting deadline. So, wait a minute.
Court slows down what?
Court bars PMB Emefiele from shifting deadline.
Yes, a number of parties had gone to court just before, and they obtained an injunction just before the states of Kaduna, Zamfara, and I'm trying to remember the third one now. Kaduna, Zamfara, and Kogi went to court to stop extend or to get an extension. Some other parties had gone to court to stop the CBN and the president from giving a further extension. So it's a battle in the courts now. It's now been heavily politicized by the political parties, and we'll wait to see just how matters eventually pan out in this particular matter.
Oh dear, so we'll look to that and see, but look at that, fuel crisis also above that. NNPCL, IPMAN reach agreement on direct supply pricing. Okay, some of the chair probably, but there's a lot more here, but that will be with leadership this morning.
Well, taking a look at Daily Trust for you and look at what they also have. They're going local first. Naira fuel crisis could hamper Nigerian elections. That's coming from the World Bank. Yes, that's what they have on the front page. Kaduna, Zamfara, Kogi sue federal government CBN as court stops extension. 14 political parties threaten poll boycott if they now have the ellipsis there, continues right there. Buhari must act to douse tension. So page 4 is where you'll find details. Now, while we're looking at our problems locally, there was a major international disaster yesterday, a natural disaster in Turkey. Death toll in Turkey, Syria earthquake hits 3,000 in one fell swoop. I mean, I think it was a 7.9 magnitude earthquake. Some of the collapses, some of the building collapse was caught live on camera, and it was just very devastating to watch. That people could have been, in fact, people were in those buildings when they went down the way they did. I see that a number of countries too have mobilized, a number of neighboring countries have mobilized to help the first responders, make sure that as many people as possible are saved from that particular disaster. But I'm sure that, the hearts of the entire world is with Turkey at this point as they battle with this particular disaster. They have a number of other stories there for you. This broke yesterday. Yobe North Supreme Court affirms Lawan as APC candidate. That happened yesterday. IDP stranded as fire razes 200 houses in Borno camp. So you run away from one disaster, go to an internally displaced persons camp, and then right there in the camp, another fire razes your homes, your temporary homes. Where do you then go?
Wow.
I hope that they're able to get that quickly. 3 soldiers wounded, 6 villagers killed in Benue attack. That is also on the front page for you. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
And the next one I have for you this morning is this Nigeria. And of course, it also has to do with the Naira. Naira palaver. This is how the big story is rendered. EFCC apprehends bank manager for hoarding 29 million Naira new notes. That's it. I'll take it again. EFCC apprehends bank manager for hoarding 29 million Naira new notes. Take a look at the riders. Court restrained CBN from extending deadline on use of old notes as Kaduna, Kogi, Zamfara drag FG to Supreme Court over Naira deadline. Ayo, why would a bank manager hoard 29 million Naira new notes? I mean, if you loaded the new notes on the ATM of your bank with the deductions, you're going to make money on the charges on withdrawals from other banks. So why would a bank manager hoard 29 million Naira new notes?
Well, speaking as an uninformed bank official, I think the facts are just out there, I mean, for all of us to see. I think it was the DSS that first blew the lid on this, saying that, look, these are the things that are happening. It's not that Nigerians are unaware. I mean, I don't know which videos you have seen, and I've trolled through Twitter for a bit. I've seen all kinds of things, mentioning a specific bank that, in fact, they created an award, most useless bank, and then, on Twitter. And I also saw another video of some bank officials escaping the bank through the back door and scaling the fence. The facts are right there in our faces. Why would this happen? What interests are there to serve? I think the law should just take its course. Now, the EFCC has apprehended this bank manager. Well, we'll just wait for how the course of that law is going, how the course of the rule of law is going to tell on that one. But I'm also very concerned about the mix in the sub-stories. Court restrained CBN from extending deadline, and governors with state governments
heading to court.
Headed to the Supreme Court. Over that.
I believe there's something also in the CBN Act that allows for the old and new notes to run concurrently until the old notes phase out. And, business reporters bring to our memory that this was the same thing that happened when Nigeria transited or changed the currencies of 20 Naira, 10 Naira to the polymer prostrate. But the lawyers can guide us better on that.
Isn't that what is happening in the UK right now? Where the crown has changed
as a result of,
but then both are supposed to be. But I'm not even going to speak for government. I believe, as you said, the law is there for them to obey, and the reality of Nigerians are right there in our faces. And I always say something. Let's not just pay attention to the noise. What is happening below?
Absolutely.
Very, very, very important.
Because I'm trying so hard to restrain myself from, subscribing or thinking about the conspiracy theory that was discussed on the program yesterday. But so many questions to ask, and we'll help you with those questions on the program today. There are more stories. Let's look at this one above, just beside the nameplate. Ipman pleads for time to comply with 195 Naira official pump price. That throws up yet another question. I hope my voice does me well this morning. I thought that the official pump price initially adjusted was 185 Naira per litre as announced by the NMDPR. So this is another one, 195 Naira official pump price.
You said you thought, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thought.
Okay. As we go ahead, gunmen attack, kill Nigerian pilgrims in Burkina Faso. That's a sad one coming in from Burkina Faso, but you'll find details on page 6 to know the exact circumstances. And from yesterday, I guess this is a continuation, FIC promotes 4,000 officers at a go. We also, had news yesterday about largesse given to officers that were promoted. Well, that's a good development, a good new year beginning for the FIC. And lastly, court stops PDP from suspending, expelling Wike. There you have it. The internal crisis in the PDP is far from over.
Well,
So which party is without internal crisis these days?
Well, the wedding parties. The Vanguard newspaper is next this morning, and it's also talking about new notes. But it begins with old notes. Old notes don't extend February 10 deadline. Court tells FG-CBN as Kogi, Kaduna, Zamfara drag FG to Supreme Court. Group goes to court, seeks expiry date extension. 14 political parties threaten to withdraw from polls. Okay, so now CBN, you've cooked the soup. Let's see how many of us will enjoy it. But then look at the front page of the paper. EFCC monitoring ATMs. That's what the picture is about. Operatives at a bank in the central area in Abuja monitoring the activities of banks in Abuja yesterday. That's the lead story of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Right above the nameplate, PDP APC fight over alleged 22.5 billion naira vote buying fund. Okay, and the riders are quite a few, and a number of other stories you have interest in, but look at this one very, very quickly. Mr. and Mrs. Mrs. is telling Mr. who is out of sight, baby, the doctor said I should bring my baby to the hospital for checkup. And Mr. out of sight asks, which one of us? That's the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Okay, all right. Take a look at The Guardian next. Naira swap. Court restrains Buhari CBN on February 10 deadline. That's a high court in Abuja, we'll say. So it's a big lead for The Guardian here this morning. 3 APC governors sue FG over Naira scarcity. Obaseki backs cashless policy. Protesters accuse banks of hoarding, selling Naira notes to politicians for vote buying. 14 political parties threaten to boycott elections if the Naira redesign cash withdrawal policies are cancelled. Nasima, CBN should have introduced 5,000 Naira notes, not redesign Naira. So you have lots of takes on this big matter affecting any and everything. So, yeah. It's what you get to see here. That is it with The Guardian today.
New Telegraph has this one. Abuja court to Buhari CBN. You can't suspend new notes. Cash limit policy. As Kaduna, Kogi, Zamfara drag federal government to Supreme Court over Naira scarcity. So that's the lead story. 14 parties threaten to withdraw from polls if deadline is shifted. Apex Bank's monetary policies best for our economy. That's from Obaseki. Abiodun urges CBN lenders to make cash available. EFCC arrests bank manager for hoarding 29 million naira new notes in Abuja. CBN should have introduced 5,000 naira notes. That's from Nasima Dichi. So they have all of those stories. Those stories we've seen make the rounds, and most of the papers are also inside New Telegraph this morning. But look at this. As a result of what's been happening around banks, where irate customers have been destroying ATMs and besieging banks in sometimes a very angry manner, look at this. Banks direct staff to dress down, reintroduce tally numbers for customers. I remember the days when we were trying to advertise the transition from the so-called old generation banks to the new generation banks. And one of the things that, people used to complain about with the old generation banks was that they used to take mats to the bank so that they could sleep in case, it doesn't get to your turn that day. Because they were really, really slow in terms of attending to customers. I sincerely hope that we're not back there again with the sort of queues we're seeing outside the gate.
With tally numbers?
Yes, with tally numbers. I mean, if you have any others, I visited a bank, a major bank headquarters in the central area yesterday. If you had any other trouble that wasn't related with currency crisis, it was going to be hell for you to get into the bank. And I don't think that ought to be the case at all. We thought we had since gone past this. It is really very troubling to see the sight in front of our banks. But look at this, just what we're talking about, the multi-stakeholder feature of, the banks, beg your pardon, of the elections. Transporters groan, threaten to pull out of INEC's logistics plan, occupy NNPCL headquarters. So that is also on the front page this morning. The complaint is over fuel scarcity, plan to shut petrol stations, selling fuel to government vehicles. Osun civil society threatens mass protest in Osogbo. Makinde releases Oyo Omititun buses for free transportation. 195 naira per litre. Give us more time. Ipman appeals to federal government. So they also have that. And a little something to cheer over the weekend. This came out at 2023 Grammy Awards. Thames wins, Burna Boy loses out. But this was very good to see that, some of our Nigerian acts are being recognized internationally and winning awards. I mean, the Grammys, it's as big as it gets, especially in the music industry. Buhari lauds creative industry for encouraging talent. So that is also there for you. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph newspapers.
And move to the Nigerian News Direct. It's also about the Naira. If you look at the front pages, as you would soon see, and this is how the lead story is captioned: banks shut branches as Naira scarcity. I'll take that again. Banks shut branches as Naira scarcity crisis worsens nationwide. Don't forget the tiny bit of the headline at the top: mob attacks. Banks shut branches as Naira scarcity crisis worsens nationwide. Not to talk of the queues that Malkwe initially talked about. Take a look at the riders. They would provide a bit more insight. Branch managers lament new note supply shortage. Banks scant of cash deposit. CBN threatens Sterling Bank for allegedly hoarding new Naira notes. Mans state branches with heavy security presence. Court stops CBN from shifting deadline as 3 APC states drag Buhari's government to court. New Naira note scarcity, police warn mischief makers. You'll find all the details on page 2 of the Nigerian News Direct. Take a look at this one also that has to do with the Naira scarcity. It's close to the bottom strip. New Naira scarcity, EFCC arrests commercial bank manager in Abuja for hoarding 29 million Naira. 2023, that's at the bottom. NDIC boss predicts upsurge of MFBs on board Nambut platform. Well, you find details of that on the inside pages, page 2 to be specific. And above the nameplate, still on the Naira Palaver, Abiodun engages CBN Bankers Committee over cash scarcity. So it's a matter that affects everyone at the top and at the bottom, but some would have us believe that it's not necessarily those at the top, but Nigerians at the rung of the ladder that are mostly affected by the Naira scarcity. But let's leave it there for the Nigerian News Direct.
The Guardian is talking money as well this morning. Court restrains Buhari CBN on February 10 deadline. He's talking about Naira swap. 3 APC governors sue FG over Naira scarcity and a number of other things that you will find on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Just needed to emphasize that perhaps because it is definitely delicious news. And that's the much of the papers we can take this morning. We're back right after now for more. Stay with us.
With this squad app, I think my customers will understand that it's my own POS. No wuru wuru, no waka waka.
Party PDP in Benue State, with the exception of Governor Samuel Ortom at the Makurdi airport to receive the party's presidential candidate, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, as he arrives for the campaign. Away from the airport, PDP supporters converge on the Aperaku Stadium in Makurdi. Cultural dancers entertain guests. Unlike in previous campaigns, Mr. Atiku Abubakar makes a quiet entry into the venue, signaling the commencement of the campaign. Governor Samuel Ortom of Benue State is absent at the rally, and the PDP in the state wants the issues that kept him away to be resolved. Nevertheless, they are promising to deliver Benue for the PDP.
We, your sons, myself, Senator Dele Momodu, Dr. Yoche Ayu, Senator Abba Maru, Senator Okeje, and the rest of Benue prominent sons are all together in the bid to elect our former Vice President, Alhaji Abubakar Atiku, the Dele Momodu.
Together we will be stronger because Nigerians are waiting for PDP to recover this country. Your Excellency, you will do this last effort to resolve this result. Your Excellency, this is what we are pleading for.
Responding, the PDP National Chairman Yoche Ayu urges the aggrieved governors to bury the hatchet.
The party is not divided. There are a few of our members who have grievances. We are talking to them. We want to make sure they come back and work with us fully.
Mr. Atiku Abubakar is next to speak. Before his remarks, he receives the endorsement of youths in the state.
To Atiku Abubakar as the choice of Benue students.
The PDP presidential candidate promises to end the farmer-herder crisis in the food basket of the nation.
Benue State is the food basket of this country. Today, our farmers in Benue State don't go to farm again because of insecurity. I will make sure security returns to Benue State.
Benue State is the last in the north-central geopolitical zone to host Mr. Abubakar as he travels nationwide canvassing for votes ahead of the February 25 presidential election. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
All right, welcome back. We're starting on a political note, and as you've seen there, Chief Dele Momodu joins us next in the studios here. He is the Director, Strategic Communications of the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today, sir.
Good morning, and it's nice to be here again.
Yes, indeed, and quite a lot of things going on in the polity this time, some of which, of course, opposition has accused your party, saying, look, several of those fifth elements are working in favor of your candidate, and to some extent, some even think all of these scenarios happening, are they, in the manner of speaking, playing to the advantage of the PDP? People are not happy with the system. Who knows? But in this country, I mean, in politics, they even say generally, 24 hours is a long time. Things could change just like that. But how do you see these things as they play out?
Well, nothing is going to change. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is going to win the election. Nothing is going to change. And I will give you copious reasons why I say so. I'm not saying so because I'm being overtly optimistic. I'm saying it based on personal experience. I've been in politics now for over 40 years. I've watched Nigeria go up, go down, stabilize, and disappear again, but there is a pattern to it. One, when a government, anywhere in the world, this is not peculiar to Nigeria, a government has not performed to expectation, that government is usually punished during elections. Two, when a government has not performed well, it's a referendum. And after 8 years, people get generally fed up. And that is why you see that in most countries, after 4 to 8 years, things just change and people get so angry. You could see it happened to PDP in the past. When in 2015, people felt, oh, things cannot get worse than this and all that. And then we experimented with the Buhari government. So, APC, they played their part. Congratulations to them. But things are falling apart. They are not falling apart. They are falling completely apart. So, Nigerians are tired. Wherever you go today, everyone is talking about it. Then, when you look at the mainstream candidates, I like to say that, usually, again, in many countries, you have two mainstream political parties and candidates. In the case of Nigeria, now we seem to have a third force. The fourth force is not doing much. So, and who are the leading candidates? Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Lagos, and Peter Obi, former governor of Anambra State.
So you acknowledge that he's now a contender in this election?
We are very, very practical human beings. I'm a Democrat. I'm not going to disparage anybody. It's a third force. But how forceful is that force is the question.
But you're underestimating what you describe as a fourth candidate.
No, I'm not. It's obvious. I mean, even to have a third force is difficult. If Peter Obi is struggling, then the number 4 would have to struggle more. So, if you give me the chance, I will analyze it.
By what criteria have you said that, that Peter Obi is struggling?
He is definitely struggling. You see, a presidential race is a marathon. It's a long-distance race. It takes time to build up. Even Chief M.K. Abiola, a lot of people who don't know the history of Nigeria thought he just came in 1993 with all his stupendous wealth and he won the election. No. In 1981, he was in MPN. He had loads of money, just like Tinubu today, but he was a businessman. He was not a career politician. He wanted to be president, and he was told the presidency is not for sale. Most people, most money bags who come into politics always feel it's all about money. But they told MKO, it's not about your money. And he went away quietly to rebuild and came back in 1993, 12 years after. And that was when he was able to do it. So those who are running today, okay, they are new on the stage. Presidential stage is a massive stage. Tinubu had always played at the regional level. In Lagos, at the very best. Even in the whole of the Southwest, he had always been challenged. He didn't have the aura, the intellect, the personality of an Abiola or an Awolowo. So that is why I said it's going to be difficult for any of them to match Atiku Abubakar. Atiku Abubakar started the race in 1993. The first time I set my eyes on him was at the SDP convention in Jos, where he was persuaded to step down for Abiola. And that's when I started noticing the Democrat in him. He stepped down quietly. He went back home. He didn't throw tantrums like we see some people today who see politics as a matter of life and death. He's a child of destiny. He went away. And by 1999, he came back. He had already won the election to be governor of his state. But as fate will have it, he came back, he was selected by General Olusegun Obasanjo, and he became the vice president. So it tells you something about the man. And if you study his trajectory since then, you will see that he's a true Democrat. Today, he's the only one who has built that network of bridges. As I told you, even in smaller countries like Ghana, President John Ajekum Kufuor contested 3 times before he became president. President Jonathan Mills contested 3 times before he became president. The current president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, contested 3 times. In Liberia.
So, I mean, I understand all of the instances that you're trying to bring up. Everybody will say that every country is peculiar with its own politics in terms of how this has happened. I mean, you made reference to 2015 when the PDP was ousted from power. At the time, the current candidate of your party right now was a part of the APC, which forced him out, which forced the PDP out of power. So some people might argue that, you know, there have been an alignment and realignment since the PDP was last in power, because you said that one of the things that will happen, and one of the things that normally would happen, is that political parties are punished during elections when they do not do well. And you made reference to that. You gave an example of how the PDP performed and what saw it out of power. Some people will say that part of what saw the PDP out of power wasn't really because it underperformed or under-delivered to the Nigerian people. It was the forces that came together at the time, the conglomeration of forces, the fact that the political parties were able to come together and even get people from within the PDP itself. You forget the NPDP, as they were called at the time, who joined forces with the APC to wrest power from the PDP. Do we see that sort of alignment and realignment? Because it's very difficult, as you might imagine, for the party at the center, for the ruling party, as it were, to lose power in a country like Nigeria.
No. Examples abound everywhere. In the US, in Ghana, in Nigeria, governments have lost power. It happened to my good friend, President John Mahama, in 2016 in Ghana. He remains one of the best presidents in the country. There are times people get fed up. So imagine if a performing government could lose. What then will happen to a government that people believe is not performing? So that is the situation in Nigeria today. Even the wife of the president, our first lady, and I like her, she's very outspoken, she apologized on behalf of their government. Even their candidate, Tinubu, today, is angry at the party and said they didn't perform, they can't think, they don't have brains to think, and he's the philosopher king who thinks for Buhari. It tells you something. So that's why I laugh when people say, oh, we have crisis in PDP. I said, no.
You're not looking at the elements. I mean, you don't seem to agree with the elements and points now. The fact that there had to be, will I say, an agglomeration of forces to wrest power from the hands of the PDP.
It is different. That happened because you don't forget that Buhari had contested 3 times and he had almost given up. All the smaller parties had to come together. PDP is different. PDP has been in operation since 1999. APC had to come from the different regions. Buhari was playing as a regional force. Tinubu was playing as a regional force. Atiku is not a regional force. Atiku is the only one who cuts across every part of Nigeria. There is nowhere Atiku will step in today and he will not be welcome. So the comparisons are different. Atiku has built bridges spanning 30 serious, consistent, tenacious years. Is definitely different from somebody who, like Fela would say, Johnny just come, who is just coming.
Who are the people that are just coming?
Oh, Tinubu is coming from Lagos to play at the center.
Even though he's a career politician.
Yes, but a career politician in Lagos, controlling Lagos absolutely in the last 24 years.
Some people would, you know, really take up, I don't know, wouldn't mind just disagree with that analysis.
Oh, they are free.
In the sense that, I mean, a party like the APC, you heard his speech in Ogun State, in Abeokuta, pre the primaries of his own party. And you heard when he said that, you know, they came together, he was the one who helped the president. You heard that particular speech. So it would seem that there had been work going on underground before now.
You see, you can fall for the propaganda. I was a part of the team that brought Buhari into power. I was handling a lot of media. Till today, I'm probably the only outsider who is not in government, who still receives information directly from the presidency, and I support them because this is my country. The president of a country is the father of the nation. If he fails, we all fail. If he succeeds, we all succeed. In 2015, look, we should not rewrite history. One of the people who brought Buhari to power was Chibuke Rotimi Amechi. Let's forget this propaganda of turning one man into God. There is only one man that brought Buhari. Buhari can accept it because, you know, he's generally taciturn. He doesn't talk much. He picks his words. And as president, he cannot be trading words with members of his party. It is untrue. Atiku Abubakar helped Buhari. Rotimi Amechi helped Buhari. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso helped Buhari. So if they all have the same entitlement syndrome, today they will be claiming that, so if Rabiu Kwankwaso should be telling the president, I delivered X number of votes to you in Kano. Rotimi Amechi will say, I delivered X number of votes to you in the South, including stupendous wealth. People spend money. So to now bring all this together and say only one man did it, it's very unfortunate, but it's Buhari that,
but,
you know.
Listening to, you know, your analogy about how people often get fed up, there comes a time in history where things need to change. But then we also do remember, and it's widely documented, how when the president contested about the third time or thereabout, at some point he was frustrated about the whole thing. He initially also did say he won't go again in this one. And then much later, after he won, he was also surprised that the former president, Jonathan, actually called him. So why do you think that all of this scenario took him by surprise? If these were natural development, he should have expected it, saying, well, yeah, people get frustrated and they change. How come?
When you are in what I call the gilded cage that the presidency is, you are in prison, you don't see or feel a lot of things happening to you. People tell you lies. It's the same thing some people are telling APC now, that they are invincible. I mean, I would like to give an example of the governor of Kaduna State. This is a man I had watched very keenly because I consider myself a scholar, and I see him more as a scholar, as an intellectual than a politician. In fact, when I contested in 2011, it was one of those I considered to be my running mate. That's how much I admire him. So when you now see those people packaging a fluke for Nigeria, it worries me. Blackmailing everybody that because Tinubu helped you in the past. When did they sit down and say the compensation for helping a man to power is that you too must become president? Then Amechi has the same right, if not more. Amechi twice has been the Director General of the Buhari campaign. Twice. Spent money, sleepless nights, traveling all over Nigeria. You have an Oshibajo who is very calm, one of those who built the Tinubu image that we have today. you can see the man staying back and watching quietly.
Are you reading the situation right? Because, I mean, you've pointed out the speech of the, I think you're referring to the speech of the governor's decision that they took, and also the speech he made, Governor Nasir El-Rufai made in Kaduna, when he says that the North will not go back on its own words. Is that what you're referring to?
No, it's not about the North not going back on his own words. It's about someone who is being opportunistic, playing a clever game. He knows Tinubu is not going to win. The race for 2027 has started. If you are not a politician, you don't know. These guys, they play in advance.
I just want to get that.
So that's why I'm telling you that it's not about power returning to the South. It is about the ambition of certain individuals in APC who know that Tinubu will not win, and they are positioning themselves for 2027. Let me finish, please.
Yes.
Please, my sister.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
They know that in 2037, you cannot win. No Northerner can win without the South, and no Southerner can win without the North. So their strategy, right now, suddenly, El-Rufai has become the superhero of the South, the one who is speaking that power must go back to the South. It is all lies. The truth is, they are playing the game. They know the man is going nowhere. There are too many reasons why Tinubu will not be president. When your vices outweigh your virtues, no country will accept it.
Chief Dele Momodu, I'm just trying to see, because it would seem that is the reading that the PDP is given to the speech that the APC governors have made. Because some people say that the sentiments that have been espoused are quite strong in a country that is deeply divided, in a country that believes in rotation of power between North and South. Your party seems to be going against the grain, fielding a Northern candidate, you know, after an 8-year presidency of the North.
I won't follow that bit.
And it will seem that this is how you've chosen to read it because of, you know, the candidate that you have presented to the Nigerian people.
I will not fall for that bait. There is nothing in the Constitution of Nigeria that says 1 or 2 terms in the North, 1 or 2 terms in the South. None. PDP, in its wisdom,
has
in its collective wisdom.
Yeah.
But some people within PDP, and if we have time, we will also go into the details of that, decided, I participated in that process, and they decided they were going to throw it open because of the ambition of a few people, including Southerners, who are complaining today that power did not come to the South. So what happened was that PDP is far, far ahead when it comes to the sensitivity and the balancing of politics in Nigeria and the politicians. Between 1999 and 2007, President Obasanjo, a Southerner, a Christian, was president. Then President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua came on board, spent 3 years, God rest his soul, then he departed. Then his vice president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, took over and spent a total of 5 years. That is 5 plus Obasanjo's 8, that's 13 years. He was still given a ticket, as controversial as it was. If he had won in 2015, he would have spent a total of 9 years in power. Add that to Obasanjo's 8 years. That would have given you 15 years out of 24 years since our return to democracy. So today, PDP has served, Southerners in PDP have served for 13 out of 24 years. 13. Nobody talks about it. But every day they say, oh, it's the turn of the South. And let's go beyond that. Okay, if it's the turn of the South, is it the exclusive preserve of one man? Are there no better candidates that we can throw up? Nigerians cannot continue to express this kind of emotion and sentiment of a Milokan, it's my turn. No, it's nobody's property.
I mean, in your analogy, people always see that the governors in the APC, all of them, always tell people, people have the impression that several governors in the APC who are way much more than their counterparts in the PDP will work and deliver the APC. So now you categorically telling us that they may say one thing in the open, but behind the scenes, it will turn out differently.
No, I'm too logical to look at it in such a simplistic manner. Number one, most second-term governors always become lame dogs. They do not have the kind of power they had in their first term. That's what is happening to Buhari. That's why Tinubu can come openly and attack Buhari. He would not have tried it before 2019. But he knows Buhari is on his way out. So now everybody is punching him and the man cannot respond. It's because he has become a lame dog. They know that after February 25, a new president will emerge, and that will be Atiku Abubakar. So now they can punch him well. They can blackmail him and bully him into submission. Now he jumps on his plane to go and campaign. Whether he likes it or not, he knows the truth.
So
No matter what you say about Buhari, he knows the truth. No matter what you say about the failure of APC, Buhari still has his personal integrity.
All of those persons in his party
who are attacking him,
will not work to deliver the ruling party.
No, one thing, they don't even have the power. How has El-Rufai managed Kaduna? What's happening in Kaduna? Total chaos. Total chaos. I went to Kaduna to see Sheikh Gumi before our primary. I could not believe it. Kaduna became a ghost town.
In what regard?
Oh, in every regard. The streets were empty. That used to be the most bubbly of states in the Northwest.
Even though they'll tell you, look, concerning the figures, economic figures, the revenue they generated, so how do you look at that? But it's a different matter entirely. Let's bring in our colleagues in Lagos. Go ahead, guys.
Good morning, Chief Momodu. It's interesting that, you argue this way, because I recall that I interviewed you during the PDP primaries, and you argued vigorously at that time that it was indeed the turn of the South. And you told me that because you are from the South, that, the scheme of things favored you, and that, the PDP should look the way of Southern candidates. So what has happened between now and then? Have you all of a sudden forgotten, or as my colleagues say, politicians campaign one way, but they mean something else? And tie that to with the, call, the demand on your vice presidential candidates to remember the agreement that they made, which he turned his back on, betraying Southern governors, even though they had agreed that, no Southern governor should agree to be a vice presidential candidate.
Well, let me start from the rear. If you say no Southern governor should agree to be vice president to the North, so how come Governor Nyesom Wike was prepared to be vice president after he lost the primary? The anger and all the tantrums came only after he failed to clinch that. So I will answer from the rear. So let me now go to your first question. I never told you that it must, as a matter of life and death, become a Southern affair. The powers that be within PDP were the ones who changed the mood of the moment. My mood was that, yes, a lot of people in the PDP wanted power in the South. And as far back as March 30th, ever before Wike joined the race, I'd written to him because I was suspecting he was interested in the race. I saw him as our best governor. He's performed wonderfully. I call him the poster boy of PDP. Extremely gifted when it comes to executing projects. But these were the same people who maneuvered and meandered their way to ensuring that it was thrown open. The chairman, who was from the South, was cleverly removed, Prince Uche Secondus, and then people started doing their thing. Once the party decided to throw it open, you cannot blame me for that. I'm a loyal party man, but there is nowhere where it was signed that a Southerner cannot be vice president. The party is always supreme. The party decided, and I know, I must add this, that even when the issue of this zoning came in, our principal, Atiku Abubakar, had said the only way that this thing would work is that if we want to be fair, let it go to the southeast. But some people who were not from the southeast who wanted to contest by fire by force refused, and they had their way. So you can't blame anybody for it. It's a party thing. I'm in PDP. They had asked me, if you don't make it, are you going to quit? I said no. I stood by my... This is the first time I'm in a mainstream political party, by the way. I've always been in opposition. I'm still in opposition. I support people, oftentimes based on my personal beliefs. When I supported Buhari in 2015, I was not in APC. When I supported Atiku and Peter Obi in 2019, when I supported Buhari, I was not in APC. When I supported Atiku and Peter Obi, I was not in PDP. So for me, now I'm in PDP. My duty is to support our candidates, Atiku Abubakar and Dr. Ifeanyi Arthur Okowa. There is nothing that is no longer personal to me. I've moved on. Many of us lost the election and we're supporting our candidate. And I will call on others who are aggrieved. Everybody has a right to be aggrieved. But to now narrow it down to as if some people forced the northerner on PDP, no, that didn't happen. PDP had always been fair to the South. That's why I told you that out of 24 years, Southern presidents had been in government for 13 out of 24. So the accusation that the North wants to monopolize power, it does not hold water in PDP.
Okay. Well, let me appeal, Chief Momodu, to the journalist in you and ask this question around issues that should make this election prominent. There's the belief out there generally that a lot of times when politicians are talking, it's always more about politicking as opposed to the issues that Nigerians should focus on. So let me appeal to the journalist in you and ask you why it seems that generally mostly politicians are more about the sentiments of the elections, and consequently the young people and most Nigerians generally follow in that trajectory as opposed to focusing on the issues that are disturbing people and should form the kernel of the elections.
Yes, because as they say, seek ye first the kingdom of power, and then everything else will be added onto it. You cannot have issues if you don't have power. You can be the most brilliant man in the world, but if you don't win elections, you are not able to exhibit your talents. I know what I can do for my country. I know the things I've done for my country, but you will realize that elections generally are emotional affairs. They are sentimental affairs, and that is why more often than not, not just in Nigeria, everywhere in the world, people fall for scams. Once you can present yourself as a saint, I have one shoe, I have one shirt, I don't wear wristwatches, I have one car, you know, and you apotheosize yourself to that level of a demigod, you are likely to succeed, especially with the young ones. But those are mistakes we've made in the past. And when I see those signs, I see a red flag and I run away from it. Nations are not governed by saints. Nations are governed by performers. So in this race, I've looked at the main contenders and I've seen a man that I believe at this time when Nigeria is in a very precarious state, I've seen a man who can help balance that country well, who can recover us from the brink of collapse. And that man is Atiku Abubakar. So it's not about, we're not talking issues. The issues are out there. He's the only one talking about restructuring. He's the only one pointing to what he was able to do when he was vice president and was the chairman of the Economic Council. Though some people may try to downplay that, but everybody knows that the most influential vice president in the history of Nigeria is Atiku Abubakar. That's why he remains relevant till today. And you can see his temperament, his comportment, he is detribalized, he is cosmopolitan. You see a lot of young people around him. If you look at our campaign, you will see most of us, we are Christians. He doesn't think about those primordial sentiments that politicians like to exhibit. He will never attempt a Muslim ticket in a plural society that Nigeria is. And those are the issues for now. The issue is that you must win the election first before you can now work on your projects. His projects are very clear. He has his 5-point agenda, and that is what we're selling. You will never hear Atiku abuse Buhari, despite the fact that he's in opposition. He will not attack any governor, despite the fact that he's in opposition. He will never respond directly to El-Rufai's provocation, despite being the one who helped him in the past to get some things in government. He's just a man Nigeria needs right now. That maturity, that experience is required. We cannot afford to bring people who cannot even manage their anger. When a man can go on television and insult a president, I mean, I don't know what else you want to see. Yeah. It's all about discipline. It's discipline.
Well, Chief, you know, yesterday, the Minister of Works and Housing did say, look, a SWOT analysis has been carried out by their party, and that Labour Party, NNPP, PDP combined cannot defeat the APC. And he says all three of them were together in 2019. And if you combine all their votes, how much? And how many of them? In just a few millions. And he says, now it won't be any different. So when you say that, yes, you've seen nationally what will likely happen. So how do we then juxtapose it with this perspective?
I am happy I watched that interview. Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola happens to be my very good friend, my good brother, someone I respect so much. And he is one of the brilliant guys we have around in politics. Maybe if they had picked Fashola as presidential candidate, maybe a lot of people would not even complain about the Muslim ticket. But what he was saying last night, trust me, is just to defend his boss. I didn't expect anything less. Anybody who knows the mathematics of elections in Nigeria will know that what he was saying was absolutely false. And I will tell you, in 2014, I wrote between President Jonathan and Muhammadu Buhari in search of mathematicians. You can Google it. That was the first time the Buharis had hope that they can win. I know the spread in Nigeria. Number one, historically, 1979, 1983, whenever you have two strong southern candidates, they cannot beat the mainstream northern candidate. It's impossible. Awolowo, though I don't see them on the same level, but what is happening today is like a repeat of history. Awolowo was there in the southwest, just like Tinubu is there in the south, and Tinubu does not even have a quarter of Awolowo's cult followership at that time. Then, in the southeast, we had the Wile of Onitsha, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. And then in the north, we had Shehu Shagari, Alhaji Shehu Shagari from Sokoto. We had Malam Aminu Kano in Kano, just like you have Rabiu Kwankwaso today. The north, on February 25th, you watch. The same way Tinubu has now gone back into his base. The base he neglected for so long because he felt the people he needed, he took them for granted. The people he needed were the northerners. Right. Now he has run back to his base. Don't run away, sir. He has run back to his base to go and appeal to ethnic sentiment. And you expect that the northerners will also not follow the same ethnic, and then you must think some people are fools.
In conclusion, Chief, but we also do know that same 1959, I thought that the...
No, 79.
79, NCNC Action Group.
No. That was in the First Republic. I'm talking about 1979.
Okay, but
that's Shagari.
But we have a history of NCNC Action Group defeating the NPN, the Northern Party at that time, 2 southern parties defeating. So that was a scenario in our history.
How do we consider all of that? Shagari defeated Awolowo and Azikiwe in 1979. In 1983, Shagari defeated Awolowo and Azikiwe. The same thing is going to happen. Atiku will defeat Peter Obi and Bola Tinubu.
All right, Chief Dele Momodu, the Director of Strategic Communications of the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you. All right. I look forward to seeing you again.
All right, so we will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
The Commission is aware that there are few issues to be addressed. One of them is the ongoing collection of the permanent voters' cards, the PVCs. For instance, in Lagos State, which has the highest number of registered voters in the country, as of yesterday, Thursday, 26 January 2023, 839,720 PVCs have been collected, representing 89.3% of the total figure of the new cards. This meeting with REX will consider reports from other states of the Federation, and the Commission will not hesitate to consider additional measures to ensure that all citizens have ample opportunity to collect their PVCs ahead of the general election.
The Supreme Court comes alive as the battle for who is the authentic candidate of the All Progressives Congress for Yobe North Senatorial District takes center stage. The courtroom has supporters from both sides and lawyers as the five-man panel of justices delivers judgment on the suit, which determines the fate of the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan. Justice Sentus Weze delivered the majority judgment, stating that Mr. Bashir Machina ought to have commenced his case at the Federal High Court with a writ of summons in view of the allegations of fraud in his suit against the defendants. The justices say that the decisions of the Federal High Court in Yobe and the Court of Appeal in Abuja were perverse and must be set aside. However, two other members of the panel, Justice Adamu Jaro and Justice Emmanuel Agim, disagreed with the majority judgment. They held that the lower courts were correct in their findings and declared Mr. Machina as APC's senatorial candidate for the Yobe North Senatorial District. While reading his dissent in view, Justice Agim says APC's primary election held on June the 9th, 2022, which produced Mr. Ahmed Lawan, was an illegal contraption and a ruse, as it was not monitored by INEC. He notes that Mr. Lawan's withdrawal from the Yobe North Senatorial District race on May the 12th, 2022, to vie for the APC presidential ticket automatically disqualified him from the National Assembly election. The two justices held that Mr. Machina was lawfully nominated because the primary election of May 28, 2022, which produced him, was lawfully conducted in line with the provisions of the law. The minority decision says the conduct of another primary on June the 9th, 2022, where Mr. Lawan emerged, is in breach of Section 84, subsection 5 of the Electoral Act, as the APC never cancelled the one held on May the 28th before organizing another one. They therefore dismissed the appeal by the APC for being incompetent and unmeritorious. The President of the Senate had sought to clinch the APC ticket for re-election to the Senate after his failed attempt at the party's presidential ticket last year. However, the lower courts affirmed Mr. Machina as the party's valid candidate for the Yobe North Senatorial District. Mr. Lawan had initially decided not to pursue the case, but the APC took on the case, insisting that he was the authentic senatorial candidate of the party.
This victory is for all of us involved. I am the symbol, but the victory is for our party, the APC, and for democracy.
Mr. Machina and his lawyers declined to speak on the judgment.
Right, so what do the lawyers think on this matter? Can they ever be on the same page? Even judges are not on the same page on this matter, so your guess may be as good as maybe Mr. Victor Giwa. He's a legal practitioner. He's the one who joins us this morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You know when they say justice must not be done, must not just be done, must be seen to have been done. Now, perspectives, several people, their perspective is reality. Concerning this matter, and given the scenarios, the cases in point, the priors that were before the court, because some lawyers say that the judges delivered a sound judgment based on the case that was presented before them. What do you think?
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain, and good morning, Nigerians. First of all, Nigeria and our jurisprudence have allowed court to go beyond the letters to do what we call substantive justice. Justice is based on confidence, and confidence is destroyed when an ordinary man on the street looks at the judge and says the judge is biased. Now, first of all, as a lawyer, the judgment as presented by the Supreme Court is ridiculous for me. And I will tell you the reasons. Firstly, this is an election matter that is live, contested by human beings and not spirits. They have flesh, they have eyes, they could feel, touch, and see. You rightly said that the court will make pronouncement based on the prayers. But in the case of Amaechi versus INEC, I'm always fast to remind Nigerians, where Amaechi that never contested an election, it was in Ghana. The Supreme Court said no. Since birds have learned how to fly without perching, and when we learn how to shoot without missing, that we will not allow politicians to take advantage of the law. We will remove Homeha and make a consequential order that Amaechi, who was the candidate but never contested the election, should be sworn in. And that was the case of Amaechi versus INEC. And that was how Amaechi became the governor of Rivers State. Fast forward. Lawan. When the Federal High Court gave his judgment on the 8th of September 2022 in Damaturu, where the Federal High Court pronounced and said that his candidacy was illegal and that the primaries conducted on the 28th of May 2022 was a valid primary. Lawan came up and said, I hand everything over to God, because he knew and understood that that is the position of the law, that he never contested that primaries in the first place. How come the Supreme Court will now announce that Lawan is the candidate for the APC? Now, we must be careful about two things. We have seen what I will call a Supreme Court appointed governor. We are now seeing a Supreme Court appointed or nominated senator. Appointed? Yes. And I will tell you why.
He has not yet gone for the elections.
Candidate.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. He's a candidate. That's what I'm saying. A Supreme Court appointed candidate. I said we saw a governor. Now we are seeing a Supreme Court appointed.
Why do you use the word
candidate.
Appointed?
Good, I will tell you. Section 29, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act says that no candidate shall emerge except from a valid primaries. The Federal High Court have said that the only valid primaries conducted by APC for the Yobe North Senatorial District was that conducted on the 28th of May, in which Bashir Masino emerged. So how can Lawan be a candidate?
So concerning that case, so what about those who then argue that, well, Mr. Machina was within his rights to have gone to challenge, trying to establish a case of fraud and try to reclaim his mandate as he tried to do. But that they don't argue that he should have brought that up based on originating summons, not a writ of summons.
Yeah, as a writ of summons, not originating
Yeah, writ of summons, not originating summons. So when they argue with that and saying the judges were right to have followed that trajectory, you say it's wrong.
Okay, I will tell you, I'm not saying it was wrong. And that's why I made recourse to the case of the Supreme Court in Amechi versus INEC. The reason is this: you cannot subject the mandate of the people on technicalities. Yes. Because what you are saying, we are presenting facts that A and B are having issues that has to do with elections. People were voted who will be representing certain parts of this country. Yobe North Senatorial District. You cannot subject that to the technicalities of, do you know what writ of summons is and originating summons? Nigerians want to know who am I. Nigerians want to know who is their candidate. So that is what I'm saying. You cannot subject that to technicalities of writ of summons and originating. However, the Supreme Court itself has said, in the case of Falobi versus Falobi, that they have gone away from the time of technicalities.
So perhaps
it is substantive justice that must be done.
Perhaps that is a technicality to you, but there are those who also say that this is not exactly the fault of the Supreme Court. It doesn't give what was not asked for, and it all depends again on how the matter was presented before it and how the case before it was framed. There are those who say instead we should blame the political party. Now the All Progressives Congress is the one that bears responsibility for this, because part of the argument, it would seem, that was presented before the Supreme Court was in whose exclusive preserve does it lie for a candidate to be presented. APC was the one who argued that Ahmed Lawan was their rightful candidate, not Mr. Manchina, as was previously thought. So if that is the situation, can one really blame, because it would seem that the Supreme Court had to, go through a number of issues and decided that at the end of the day, it is the exclusive preserve of political parties to present their candidates.
Amok, a very good and brilliant point you have just made. But the 2022 Electoral Act have changed that narrative. Gone are those days where people come up and argue that the issue of the candidate of a party is the internal affairs of the party. And that was what led to the case of Amechi versus INEC. And I will give you a little background. The then political party, PDP, wanted Omeya to be the candidate. And they were having issues with Amechi. And even when Amechi emerged as the valid candidate from that primaries, they substituted him with Omeya. And that was why the Supreme Court was angry and said, okay, when I ask you to go back, two of them will not contest. I will now declare the person who won the election, talking about substantive justice. Now,
who won the primary?
Who won the primary? Yeah. So the point you are making is that one would have gone with that position if we were operating under the Electoral Act 2010. The narrative have changed. Section 29, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act says that a political party shall, within 180 days to the date of election, present to the commission as in a prescribed form. The candidate is sponsors.
All right.
Who, that candidate must, look at the word he used. When he started with the word shall at the beginning, on getting to the issue of the primaries, he said, such candidate must emerge from a valid primary. Do you know why he used the word must? Must, because he didn't want to subject the word shall, whether you should go to court to interpret. He said must. So, why it is the party duty to submit the name of a candidate, that candidate must have emerged from a valid primary.
What is the difference between this case and that of Akpabio and Depudom?
Good question. It is almost the same.
Almost is a key word there.
Almost the same. Now, the reason why I use the word almost is because I have not looked at the judgment of that of Akpabio. Because in this particular case, there was something that a bit, that's why I said almost. The Supreme Court did not nullify. If you remember, they were talking about two primaries. One that was conducted 28th of May, and the other one on the 6th of June. The Federal High Court have said the only valid primary is the one conducted on the 28th of May. So the Federal High Court has invalidated the primary conducted on the 6th of June.
The 9th of June.
On the 9th of June. So if that is the position, the Supreme Court did not say, oh, no, the real primary is the one conducted on the 6th of June.
All right.
So as it is right now, the only valid primary is that, as pronounced by the court, that conducted on the 28th of May. And if that is the case, the person who emerged 286 votes amongst the 300 votes cast was Bashir. So that is the candidate for the party. And so the Supreme Court just based its decision on writ of summon, originating summon. That does not make any sense to the people who voted at the Yobe North senatorial primaries.
All right. Let's allow our colleagues bring in your learned colleague who is also in Lagos. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Dr. Monday Ubani joins us this morning as well to weigh in on this. He's chairman of NBA Spittle. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Ayo, thank you for having me.
Let's just continue the conversation from where we stopped. That example that Chamberlain cited of the Akpabio case that Mr. Giwa was speaking to. What's your take on that one?
Yeah, I always take time to go through these cases myself before commenting. And most time I reach out to the lawyers who handle these cases in order to be sure that I'm sure of what I want to say. I took time to study Akpabio's case. The only one I have not, apart from the report of journalists, is that one of Lawan. But we have read what happened. In Akpabio's case, there are clearly distinctions here. One, the primary election that took place in Akwa Ibom was alleged to have been held on the 27th of May, different from 28th of May. That was the day that IAPC announced their primary election for both senatorial and House of Reps. It's very important. DIG retired Ekbudom alleged that he held his own election on 27th. So that again has really, probably set a setback. Secondly, he now alleged that it was the state ESCO that conducted his election. You and I know that with a plethora of authorities, it is the National Working Committee of every political party that actually organized primary election, not state ESCO. In his own case, the state ESCO that he alleged that conducted his election was even declared illegal by the court. Then thirdly, he brought his pre-election matter 14 days after the deadline as enacted by the Constitution, say it must be within 14 days. And finally, he went to court asking that INEC should recognize him as a proper candidate of APC without joining Akpabio, whose interest is adverse to his. Proper party must be joined. So there are many things that makes Akpabio's case different from that of Lawan.
But speaking to this...
But I tell you this.
Go ahead.
What Lawan's case has established, further is the tyranny of political party is still very alive. The issue of the lawyer you are going to use to commence your election petition is critical. If he does not understand the technicalities of election petition, he runs into problem because the court will never give you what you do not ask. It's based upon the facts of your case, your averment, and your reliefs. They will never come and amend your suit. So if you make a technical error, which is what most of the electoral matters is purely technical, it's a bit technical. And so you must have, maybe you have to amend our laws now. From now going forward on the issue of election, that look, issue of commencement, can we agree that we do not want to now bring so much technicality into it, which is what India did with public interest cases. In India today, you can write ordinary letter to the Supreme Court or to any of the courts, on public interest matter, and your matter will be heard. So the mode of commencement of electoral matters, are we going to be bogged down with is he originating summons or writ of summons and all that? So maybe the lawmakers are listening. The judges are also listening, because this case, Nigerians are not smiling. A lot of things have been written against the judiciary. So we need to take time in order to really say, are we getting it right, even with all the new acts we have enacted?
Now, it sounds to me that you're saying that there is a gap that was taken advantage of.
Yes.
Now, but then looking at the background to this case that everyone is talking about now, it would seem like at some point things seemed to have been going in a particular direction before the party went and took its decision. Now, you spoke to the tyranny of the political party.
That's right.
Now, what does that really mean, and what does it imply for anyone in these political parties? Now, I asked that question against the background of something that Mr. Mike Igene, a former resident electoral commissioner of INEC, said. He said, and I quote, "I'm tired of warning repeatedly of the danger of the judiciary not showing courage to curb arbitrariness of party leaders on matters of party primaries. I'm sick and tired," he said. "I have nothing more to say." Then he asked a question. Is our judiciary still the last hope of the common party members denied victory by party leaders? So that instrument of party platform, as strong as it is, how delicate is it for anyone who is playing within that party?
The political party has the final say on issue of primary election. That has been the decision of the court. In fact, the court runs away whenever there is conflict as to which of the primary election is proper or valid. The court says the political party has the final say. The court do not even want to entertain any, because it considers it as a political issue. So you go and decide who is your candidate. So whenever there is conflict, you know, there was election allegedly that took place on 28th, and there was another election on 9th of June. Now, which one is the political party supporting? The political party says we are not aware of the 28th because we didn't have our national working committee member conduct that election of 28th. But we are aware of the one of 9th. You see the tyranny of political party. And the courts most times have always agreed with the political party. It is your personal decision. It is whatever you want to decide. If you like, you bring an armed robber. It is your personal. We don't want to get involved.
Is that
now, but it's minority judgment. Let me correct it now.
On that one, just a quick one. On that one, is that decision of the court irrespective of whether or not that election is monitored by INEC?
Now, again, the issue of the validity of INEC report, it does not have any magic wand from what is operating now, from what is happening with decisions. Even if INEC give a report and that report is not in a properly organized election recognized by the political party, your report is of no import. That is what we're having now established, because you can go and organize your own election and call INEC and say, oh, INEC shall monitor in your home with your wife and family, and call INEC to come and monitor and then present that report. It does not employ any magic. It doesn't have any magic wand. So it must be a properly organized primary election that the political party has said, this is our election, and we invited you to come and monitor. So you go and monitor election outside what INEC has invited. I mean, a political party did not invite you, and you want to go and present that report, it will not in any way suffice. That is what Akpabio's case also established, because in Akpabio's case, there was a monitored election on 27th and not 28th. Then on the one of 9th, the same APC wrote to INEC, come and monitor that of 9th. They refused to come and monitor. So without their report, the court said, look, it is not the fault of the candidate. So if INEC failed to come and monitor in an election that political party has invited them, we have no business setting it aside.
So what lessons are there for INEC now? Because INEC is a big stakeholder in this election. And if it duly monitors a party primary for which a candidate has duly emerged, and then the court rules on cases based on technicalities, it dampens the role that INEC has played in that particular primary. So what lesson and what role is there for INEC now when the court rules this way?
INEC must be careful to monitor a proper election that the party has recognized is important. The one of 28, I'm hearing that INEC said it wasn't election organized by them, that the National Working Committee, they didn't, even the man that was one manga, they denied that. The man said it wasn't him that monitored that election. That is key. Then the one of 9th, APC said that's our political party election, primary election, in which our candidate, emerged. Now the question is, was there any real election? That is another thing we want to find out. Was there any election on the 9th of June? Because almost all the reports I read, they says there was no election on the 9th of June in Yobe. So how come now that we're having two elections, 28th and 9th, and now the court now is saying from that majority decision that maybe the one of 9th now suffices? But the minority says no, the election that they recognize as being valid is the one of 28th of May. Are you following me? But most importantly, can we deal with technicality, issue of mode of commencement of election petition?
And that's where I'm headed.
Yes.
Machina filed his case at the appeal court.
Yes.
He filed a case of fraud with the...
No, at the lower court now, at the tribunal.
At the lower court.
Yes.
How come the appeal court failed to see that lapse?
Yeah. When you file a case, one, as I said earlier, the issue of averment, the lawyer's knowledge of electoral matter is very important. And then you also need a little bit of prayer to succeed, yes. Because in that particular court of appeal, they affirmed the decision of the lower court, you know, believing that what took place was a proper primary in which INEC monitored on the 28th of May. So the whole lower court, said that Machina was properly elected. The court of appeal did not see any reason to disturb that particular findings. But the Supreme Court now, let's say, come on, you are alleging fraud. If you allege fraud, it means that it's going to be a hostile proceeding. Could you now commence a hostile proceeding with originating someone that requires only documentary evidence, or with writ of someone that will now enable a witness to be in the witness box and be cross-examined, because you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt? It's there already in the law that anytime you allege crime in any civil matter, then you have entered into the realms of proving beyond reasonable doubt. And that means you have to have a witness enter into a witness box. It has to be cross-examined. You are alleging that your signature was forged. It's no longer ordinary civil matter. We have entered into the realms of crime. So how do you now prove it? It has to be a hostile proceeding in which a witness will have to be cross-examined. It has been the law. But we are saying, in the light of what has happened in this case, do we continue with this kind of commencement of proceedings, and then using technicality now to defeat substance of justice? That is what the lawmakers who are listening to this program will now go back and say, gentlemen, people are not smiling.
Mr. Albani, what lessons does this judgment have for Section 115 of the Electoral Act, which may have birthed, all of this?
Can I say this? Section 115 defines who is a candidate. That you can be held liable criminally if, after you have emerged as a candidate in a political party, you allowed yourself to now become a candidate in another political party, or allow yourself to go and contest another, constituency election. If you emerge as a candidate, 142 of the Electoral Act define who is a candidate is somebody who has emerged. So an aspirant is different from candidate. So that's why people mistake it. Oh, Lawan participated in a presidential election, so he has become a candidate, so he cannot participate. No, the Electoral Act itself defines who is a candidate. So he was an aspirant. Akwabe was an aspirant. It's important we understand Section 115D and Section 35. Look at, if you have your Section 35, read it. Read it now, and because it's important that people be educated about it. They say, Akpabio contested presidential, Lawan contested this, and Umahi contested. In Umahi's case, his brother was there. So when he came back, his brother voluntarily withdrew. This person who came second in the primary now said, no, it was me that supposed, but the new Electoral Act does not have such provision. It is either by way of death, you are going to be substituted, or by voluntary withdrawal. So when his brother withdrew, he has the right, the political party has the right to conduct another primary, in which now Umahi emerged. This Akpabio also, there was no proper election on the 28th, because the man said 27. So that was why the that of 9th was approved.
But back to the issue you just raised now about who is an aspirant candidate and all of that. We'll come back to your section. There was this thing that I also recall in one of our conversations with, again, Mr. Mikey Guinea, who was saying, look, there are constituencies for various elections, and that the constituencies vary. Consequently, you shouldn't be able to take two forms for two constituencies at the same time. The presidency is a constituency. The governorship election, there are 36 of them.
Beautiful.
The senatorial,
yes.
Districts, there are 3 in each state.
Yes,
so there are various constituencies.
Yes, sir.
So if one person takes a form for one constituency, he is already invalidated from taking a form for another constituency.
That's why it's based upon misunderstanding of Section 35 and Section 115. Can you read it?
I have Section 35
yes,
for
sir.
you now.
Yes, yeah, read it.
Where a candidate knowingly allows himself to be nominated by
Where? Can you say?
Where a candidate,
please, can you mark that word candidate?
Yes, knowingly allows himself to be nominated by more than one political party.
Beautiful.
Or in more than one constituency.
Beautiful.
His nomination shall be void. But Mr.
Now
Bani,
go to section 142 where they define.
We'll get to section 142. But in this case, it's saying more than one political party.
That's what I'm saying.
But what we have here is one political party, more than one.
No, it's one political party, but in 2 constituencies now, Senate, presidential, and they now came to. But 142 now define who a candidate is. If you go to 142, you define who is a candidate. So when you're an aspirant, you can, from this, unless we correct it later, you can collect as many forms as possible based upon this particular definition of who a candidate is. But when you emerge as a candidate, then it will be wrong for you now to go and pick another form.
Then why do lawyers disagree on Section 115?
They should not, because it's a question of interpretation.
Because Mr. Guinea is a lawyer as well.
He is a lawyer, but the point is that the court, he didn't advert his mind to definition of who a candidate is. I'm telling you on national television, lawyers who know this, even INEC knows it. INEC have even interpreted it, that you only become a candidate when you emerge in a political party contest. Just like Tinubu now is a candidate of APC, Peter Obi is a candidate of Labour. But before the emergence, you are only an aspirant. And so that's the distinction. So you can contest for presidential, is there. Maybe we need to correct it that on no account should anyone in our subsequent amendment. Are you following me? That whenever you pick the form, you are now a candidate, and not when you emerge. That's the mistake. The lawyers, the lawmakers know what they did, because they know that they will participate. That's why they allowed it. I'm just telling you this. Look at the law. It's there. Look at Section 142 that defines who a candidate is.
Okay, just before we go back to Abuja, back to the issue of the justice, or what you call substantive justice for common party members in a political party. Now, you said that the position of the political party is supreme, and everybody agrees with that. But isn't there some form of dissension in a way? Because if a party member feels justified to go into a particular process and he goes and he comes out as expected, but then the same political party on which platform he contested that role is taking him to court and disagreeing with him based on some technicalities. You know, I don't know how this works in a family, that kind of family.
You know how the court comes in whenever there is any dispute in political party, and especially on primary. What the court comes in to do is to look at their electoral guideline, look at their constitution, and look at probably the electoral laws, whether they have complied with it. It's only on that ground that the court can come in. If you say you have set your guideline, how to conduct your election, have you complied with it? So if you fail to comply with it, the court comes in and says, look, you have done it wrongly. But when the political parties say they have conducted their primaries and they have done it in accordance with their laws, the court do not come in. And so I say that establishment of tyranny of the political party still persists. They can, in Emeka Atuma and the Honorable Sam Onibu, it's the same, almost the same fact. But because the lawyer who couched that of Onibu was careful, I'm sure he didn't allege crime. You see the difference? It's almost the same fact. Because there was election on 28. There was another one that was allegedly that took place on night. And APC say, yes, we agree with that of night. And then now put name of Emeka Atuma forward. And remove the name of Sam Onibu that won on the 28th. The same Supreme Court said no. The one we recognize is that one of 28, in which INEC monitored, in which the political party had a national working committee that actually conducted it. That is what happened. Maybe in the couching of his own environment, they were careful not to do what Lawan's lawyers have done. I mean, Machina's lawyer, by alleging crime. The moment you allege crime, in any civil case, what the law says is that you have to now prove it beyond reasonable doubt. How do you prove that? Prove that you have to have a witness in the witness box. And how do you commit such a proceeding? Is the writ of someone. That's the major difference I understand in this case.
I wonder.
And we need to talk about it in order to see what we can do to reduce this issue of harshness of this commencement mode that can defeat substantial justice.
I wonder if you agree that, you know, the purpose of the of Section 115 may have been defeated now, because you even, you know, contest what it seeks to correct.
Yes.
But the seeming perception of what it seeks to correct
yes.
is politicians, you know, manipulating the process,
yes.
Holding one bed in the hand
yeah.
and going, you know, for another
yes.
as well. Don't you think that, you know, that purpose may have been defeated and a wrong precedent may have been set ahead of future elections?
The lawmakers who started that section were careful, because they know that this will happen. They will, you know, carry forms here and there. So maybe now we have caught them in the act. We go back and say, no, you cannot be an aspirant in 2 or 3 constituencies, or be, you know, jumping from one political party to another. Let's now say that the moment you become an aspirant in one, then you cannot in any way become an aspirant in another court. That is the way to catch them, because that is, they were very careful to insert it, and many people did not see it. It is when it comes to real application, you now read it. Oh, who is a candidate? 142 says, unless you have secured the vote of the political party and emerge, that is when you are defined as a candidate. But when we just saw that candidate, we say, oh, maybe because you become a candidate by being an aspirant. No, they were careful to insert it, and nobody will know unless you go to that section 142 and see how they define who a candidate is.
Clearly,
these lawmakers, they know, these Nigerian lawmakers, they are, you know,
so do lawyers, legal practitioners who interpret those laws that are made. But, you know, countless questions on this one, but let's quickly go back to Abuja. Guys.
All right, yes, indeed. Our concluding moment here, too, with Mr. Victor Ogiwa. Well, yes, you heard your colleague there about some of these matters, so I see you nodding. You disagree. Well, what do you disagree with this time?
A lot, with respect. Firstly, I disagree with him with respect to the fact that it is the political party that has the final say about the candidacy. If you look at Section 84, Sub 13, very clear.
Of which one?
Of the Electoral Act.
Okay.
Yes, it's very clear. Like I said earlier in the particular forum yesterday, that the final decision on who to be a candidate does not lie in the political party anymore. It lies in INEC. Section 84:13 says that any political party that does not comply with the act with respect to the conduct of primaries, that the commission will not allow such candidates to participate in that election. Now, you make reference to the issue of the supremacy of the political party when it regards, when you are looking at the Electoral Act 2010. But the Electoral Act 2022 has come with some very clear provisions, starting from Section 84. This is the first time in the history of Electoral Act where how to conduct primaries are made. The Electoral Act Section 84 have said there are 3 ways of which you can get a candidate. Section 84:4, direct primary. 84:5, indirect. 84:9, consensus. And the Electoral Act went and tell you how. If you adopt the way of indirect primary, you will get a candidate with the highest number of votes, and that candidate vote must be ratified by a special Congress. So it therefore means that if a political party conducts a primary and does not comply with that provision, Section 84 says that INEC will tell you, my friend, you did not conduct
Isn't that his point? Isn't that part of the point he's making that, yes, the party reserves the right, the party provides or produces the candidates, but the electoral act now stipulates the how bit. So it's all of them just had to comply with how you produce the candidates.
Yes.
Isn't that the point? That
no, that's not the point he's making. What he is making, or what he made, was that if like he said that a party can make his candidate to be an armed robber. So the party can wake up one morning and just, I've conducted a primaries on the 11th, 6th of June. And like, this is my candidate. No. Section 84:13 says no.
I'm looking at this.
Section 84:13.
Let me quickly read it out to our viewers. It says, where a political party fails to comply with the provisions of this act in the conduct of its primaries, its candidates for election shall not be included in the election for the particular position in issue.
So what it means,
it doesn't say who will exclude the candidate. It doesn't say INEC will exclude the candidates.
No, you have to read it very well. It's making reference
I'm not seeing anywhere where it mentions the umpire.
No, but what I'm saying is that it is not the political party, at least that is clear, that the party cannot take a conclusive and final decision about the candidacy. You have to conduct your primaries in compliance with the Electoral Act.
Yeah, but okay. I think the question is who determines where the Electoral Act has not been complied with?
Because it is the court.
That is exactly. So that's why this matter has gone to court, and the Supreme Court of the land has found that, look, looking at all of the many laws read together, this is the final conclusion that we're reaching.
No, the Supreme Court did not talk about the conduct of the primaries. It just went to the issue of how you came to me. The law says conduct, because a candidate must emerge from a valid primaries. So the issue I am saying is that the Supreme Court have not declared whether Lawan is a product of a valid primary. No, you just said that the mode of commencement, oh, you didn't come this spot. That is not the issue.
I thought the argument of the APC is that the Machina did not participate in that June primary that the party conducted, the party recognized. And as such, that was why they said, no, this is our candidate, not Machina.
Yes, that is what the party was saying. But I am not telling you that the Supreme Court, that particular primaries that the APC said they conducted on the 6th of June, the Federal High Court have said that primaries is an invalid primaries. The Emmanuel Ejim said that it is an illegal contraption. So what I am saying, the Supreme Court have made a valid declaration that no, the proper primaries is the one conducted on the 6th of June. That would have been fine. But the Supreme Court did not make such finding of facts as to the two primaries. The Supreme Court just said, oh no, you came in through originating someone, you were supposed to have come with writ of someone. How does that tell me which of the primaries? Because I must be a product of primaries, not a product of writ of someone and originating motion.
Yeah, but how important, you're a lawyer, how important, because Mr. Obani has made reference to making sure that you have good lawyers. I mean, I'm sure even in your profession there is a reason why some lawyers are deemed very good and some others are deemed just okay. How important is it in terms of how you approach the Supreme Court of the land?
My answer to that question will be that why it is important that you have good lawyers to conduct your case. It is also important that the Supreme Court should not permit and support illegality on the basis of technicality. And that is why the Supreme Court have said that gone are the days of technicality. We are talking about election year, product of primaries. Because what the Supreme Court will be doing and will be vetoing will be that if I stay in the beer parlor during an election and my party just wakes up in the morning and says, well, they conducted one election in the Congress, don't worry, after I finish taking your bottle of beer, you'll be my candidate. The Supreme Court has invalidated an illegality because there's an express provision of the law how a primaries must be conducted. And Section 84 now says that any candidate that emerged, that his candidate did not comply with the provision of Section 84 of the Act, Section 84, so 1 to 13.
The parties don't have absolute powers.
That is the point. That is the point. So INEC has that prerogative to say, no, we have not conducted. The only thing the political party can do is to challenge INEC. Yes, the chairman of INEC have asked this question. Oh, Giwa, did you see where INEC, the law gives me power to disqualify a candidate? But that Section 84 verse 13, Section 84:13 can imply that the commission can
imply. It does not say clearly. Imply.
Implied meanings could mean different things. Well, that's where you come in, actually. Let us know what you think of this matters. We'll appreciate your thoughts as well. But Mr. Victor Gewa, legal practitioner, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's go on to what now? Election in numbers, different scenarios coming through this time about what to expect these days concerning the elections. But we will be back in just a moment.
Candidates
governorship
Members of the Forum of Nigerian Political Parties and some of their candidates are gathered here for a news conference to state their position on the recent policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria on cash withdrawal limit and the redesigned Naira notes.
And cash withdrawal policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Led by the National Chairman of Action Alliance, Mr. Kenneth Udeze, the forum asserts that the CBN policies are beneficial, saying it is only politicians who want to buy votes that are agitated by the Apex Bank's decision.
After robust engagement among ourselves, we are nearing a consensus, and it is my pleasure to announce to you all that the political parties in Nigeria and candidates for election 2023 general elections support the Naira redesign and cash withdrawal policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. It is only election riggers, vote buyers, bandits, corruption merchants, and other accomplices that are against these policies.
This is the best policy that the Buhari administration has brought. If you checkmate, completely paying of ransom, and in all, if you checkmate, we buy.
The group also alleges a plot to instigate violence and cause a shift in the date for the general elections, threatening to boycott the elections if President Buhari and the CBN succumb to pressure from some governors.
We have intercepted very credible intelligence of our well-financed plot to instigate violence and causing a shift on the election. We hereby announce our resolution that at least 13 out of the 18 political parties in Nigeria will not be interested in the 2023 general election, and indeed we shall withdraw our participation from the electoral process if these currency policies are suspended or cancelled, or if the deadline is further shifted.
The recent policy of the CBN regarding the cash withdrawal limit and the deadline for the acceptance of old Naira notes has received serious backlash among members of the ruling party. However, this group is assuring the Apex Bank of giving it the needed support to ensure the policies succeed.
Let's get to Lagos. I think Mr. Bani has just got some final clarifications to make on this matter. Ayo Buki.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Just about 2-3 minutes. Well, Mr. Obani, you wanted to respond to a thing or two.
Yes, it's important that my brother, brother Victor, understand that as long as primary election or political parties are concerned, it is the political party that have the final say. The court can only come in to look at it whether they have complied with their internal rule. You agree with me? If they have complied with the laws, there is nothing any court can do in order, and courts still have the final say. INEC, let them not misinterpret that electoral act. INEC cannot stop any candidate. It is a court that have the final say with any candidate qualification at any point in time.
Which is what happened in this case.
This is what happened in this case. So the court still has a role to play. The political party has a role to play in determining who is a candidate. It's a primary responsibility of the political parties, and the court has the final say.
Especially because it is primaries.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Monday Ubani, NBA SPDL Chairman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ayo.
All right, yes, indeed, as you've seen there, Mr. Yabagi joins us in the studios here to shed light on that report which you just saw about the agreement or otherwise of the political parties concerning currency redesign. Mr. Sani, welcome to the 2023 verdict. Now, let's check again because things can change so fast these days at night. You're still chairman of IPAC, aren't you?
Yes, yes.
You're still with ADP.
Exactly.
Are you still a presidential candidate?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's almost 3 caps.
Yes.
3 caps in one.
Yes.
Now that meeting that held, some of them, if not all of them, are your members of IPAC, who want certain things to happen. So now that we've seen that report, do you agree with what they're asking? Were you part of the meeting in the first place?
No, I'm not part of the meeting, and IPAC is not part of this. The whole thing we're discussing in terms of Naira redesign and what have you.
Okay, IPAC as a body is not, but members of IPAC
are. And like you notice that 3 governors also went to court.
Yeah.
And we have Nigeria Governance Forum. They are not in this hula baloo, on what central bank should do or what it shouldn't do. IPAC is a council, and the council is there to deepen democracy. And we only get involved in policy matters that we believe will serve the purpose of democracy and serve Nigerians in the manner that the Constitution intended.
This is a policy matter that you're asking.
It's a policy matter, but you don't get involved in policy matters that from the beginning, was foul in its conception, in its introduction, implementation, and it's in the aftermath. So you don't bring yourself into issues that perhaps you are not even carried along when decisions were made. So especially in this matter of Naira redesign. Yes, in our laws, if you look at even the act establishing CBN, they are given right, to change the currency maybe after 5 years or so. Yes, understandably, for almost 10 or so years now, we have not changed our currency. But that does not mean that you will come at such a critical period, in the life of the nation, when elections are very, very fundamental to democracy. And then you will now come and introduce something, and you say you are introducing it for political reasons. And
Is that what they said?
The CBN didn't say that.
Well, the president says so. And the CBN works for the president. He appointed them.
He works for Nigeria.
The
Central Bank of Nigeria.
Presumably. And that is also my growth with CBN. I mean, CBN is becoming politicized too much for the comfort of this economy. I mean, from the beginning, you have to align your monetary policy with your fiscal policies if you want your economy to perform. And we are not doing that in this country. That's
the function of the president's
We are standing the pyramid on its head, and that's why even the economy itself is crumbling.
Now,
you see, when you talk about CBN in Nigeria today is not what the constitution of this country intends it to be. Okay. And that is why you are finding some people, from the political parties who, for one reason or the other, I don't know, and you find people on the street, also demonstrating that they're supporting. We don't politicize such an important institution that's supposed to serve the nation, not the government of the day.
As a presidential candidate,
yes.
How, because we heard Rabiu Kwankwaso, the candidate of the NNPP, also said, look, some of these politicians who the policy people think this will affect, they're owners of banks. So as a candidate in this election, how does that affect you? Are you one of those who also own banks, for instance?
Well, I served on the board of a bank. I was a director on the board of a bank, but that doesn't make me the owner of the bank.
So you can have access to the currency, can you?
Yeah, I served before. I'm not on the board anymore. But the point I'm trying to make is that policies, such fundamental policies, are not made on the eve of a major election in the country. It's never done in a serious, setting, economic setting. Nation. You don't do that, But here we are, battling with fuel crisis, battling with Naira, battling with even collection of PVC, ability for people to even cast their votes, and then to add salt to injury, you now come and say people cannot even access to their money. I mean, it's never done like this. That's why the international community is passing a vote of confidence on this administration as far as the elections are concerned. I read in the papers today that World Bank is saying that they don't think this election can take place. I also remember 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, or even more than that, UK came out to say that the security situation in this country does not guarantee a free and fair elections in Nigeria. Are we dumb?
Some people would say that the international actors, they have a right to say what it is that they would want to say. We have a duty to prove them wrong. Isn't that what this should be about? In 2015, it wasn't thought that we'll be here for much longer, but we're still here, aren't we?
Let's prove them wrong by those that matter. You, myself, we can't prove them wrong. It is the people that are running our affairs that should prove them wrong. They shouldn't bring policies that are anti-democracy, anti-people.
So you think this is an anti-people policy?
It is anti-people. It's been shown. I mean, it's there.
One would think that, I mean, considering the fact that you are a presidential candidate, that this will also be in your favor. I mean, in some ways in your favor, because we see 14 political parties whom you might be familiar with coming together to say, under no circumstances should the CBN or the president be allowed to extend the deadline for this currency swap. They think that indeed this is a good policy and that on the long run it has so many benefits, including, maybe it's not an intended effect, but ensuring that politicians are not able to buy votes during the elections.
No, you don't run a country on knee-jerk, policies. You don't run a country.
Is this a knee-jerk policy?
Yes, it is. We had what we call Electoral Offences Commission Act, which has been in the National Assembly. Why didn't the president make sure that that act was passed?
A bill.
A bill, yes, a bill. Sorry, which is still with the which is with the National Assembly. That is the same way to do it. That is what matured countries like Nigeria should do. We should go by rule of law, not by somebody waking up one day and say, "Oh, I'm going to punish that person, so I will introduce this policy." For one individual or for a set of people, you don't run a country like that.
Are you feeling punished?
I'm feeling for my people. Nigerians are going through hell. I don't want to preside over such a situation. That's not what you want to see. I mean, this is not.
Are you assured? Because some people say if Nigerians are going through hell, it means that they might most likely. I mean, they would punish the people who are responsible for their current fate, and that you will not be included in that. That could work in your favor.
I don't want cheap favors at the expense of people's welfare or lives. The economy. I'm telling you, they are lying to us that it's going to address the issue of inflation. This economic care is not going to go into a deep recession. So because the situation where people cannot move, from one place to the other, they can't do and our economy is cash based. If you don't mind the issue that we will bring back 2 trillion naira or whatever that is outside the banking system. So I don't subscribe to this kind of tortuous policies.
Mr. Yabagi,
we don't deserve it as a nation.
I ask questions not as one who hasn't also felt some of one who hasn't held the short end of the stick of this particular policy. Yes. I ask based on how I have seen all the other candidates, a number of all the other candidates react to this particular policy. A number of them have also asked the CBN to not succumb to blackmail. A number of them have, said, look, as we saw with the 14 political parties, do not extend the deadline. We've seen all manner of reactions showing that, political parties think that this could work in their favor, especially if they're not in the ruling party. And I'm wondering that somehow you seem to be with the side of the ruling party, or members of the ruling party, who are complaining to the president and the CBN that this is an anti-people policy. I'm just wondering, are you really being neutral, or does this policy benefit you some way? That's what I'm wondering.
I feel for the people. That's what I'm saying. I can't benefit from something that is out of people's voice. That's not kind of government you want to run at all. I know that yes, you must go through some pains, to achieve certain fundamental, paradigm shift in running a country. That is given. Every country goes through certain, but you don't pick such a strategic, such a fundamental, such an important period that will determine whether or not your democracy even, survives.
Okay.
And then you bring something that's so fundamental in all its ramifications. I don't know. I mean, who does it not affect, and who is happy? A democracy is about making people happy. It's not about draconian laws that will make you to hate even the system. We want people to have stake in this system.
Well, Ayo and Buki also have questions for you. Please go ahead.
Well, Mr. Sani, good morning. I'm just curious, as Maupe is, how you happen to be at variance with the coalition of political parties over this policy. And also, What implications might this have, particularly on the coming elections? Because there are those who have expressed the view to the effect that this, constitutes too much of an instability at a time close to February the 25th. Are you seeing a possibility that the country is headed for some form of constitutional crisis?
Well, I don't know. You see, it beats my imagination that it's the scenario that will tell you that there's conspiracy against democracy is playing out here, because you don't do certain things at certain times, no matter how good they are. The medicine cannot be so deadly, more than the illness itself. That's the case you have today. So like I said, I'll repeat myself. It is not right as far as timing is concerned. And we had enough time to do what is right, what every civilized society does. Put a law in place, enforce those laws. We had the bill, which is about electoral offenses malpractices, commission, bill that should have been passed into law, just like the Electoral Act 2022 was passed into law. That bill should have been passed into law. That bill had the capacity and capability to take care of, vote buying and all other infractions that we witness in our elections. That bill is supposed to be a kind of a compilation of all the infractions, most of the infractions that had bedeviled our elections in the past. So I thought that is what we should have done, not to come and then put people through this terrible situation that we are going through and saying that, oh, after all, at the end of the day, your votes will not be, who says so? Who says so they will not rig? I mean, look at what happened in Oshun, and look at, who are even the riggers that we are talking about? The same people that are putting us through this torturous process. It's not the same APC that has been rigging, or APDP, or those major, parties that have been rigging elections. And who told you that they have no access to those money that they say they are printing? Why, if CBN is printing so much money as they claim they are printing, why are we not seeing it in circulation? Who are they giving the money to?
So, Mr. Sani, if the question is, is about timing and the benefits outweigh the odds, don't you think 2 weeks to the election, 2 to 3 weeks to the election, is enough to correct the ills of poor execution, make the currency available, and perhaps create room for the old notes and the new notes to run side by side, and then restore peace? Don't you think this is possible? Shouldn't you be advocating for that rather than an outright condemnation of the redesign?
But then we are oversimplifying issues here. You are oversimplifying issues here. We are talking about social process. This is something that has brought social disruption into the country. Social process do not get corrected within 2 weeks, and you know it. Dislocation that has been brought into this economy cannot be fixed within 2 weeks.
Mr. Sani, you say you have been a director of a bank. How long does it take to print currency and make enough currencies available in circulation?
They should have had enough money before you even begin to implement this policy. Money should have been awarded. I mean, should be in every bank before you start, or wherever you need to keep it. Central Bank has a branch in all the states. Why don't they put enough money? They know how much people are withdrawing. They know how much they are taking out of the economy. If they didn't have the capacity to print enough money so that money is there, you just go to the bank, collect your money, and then go away. So why didn't they do that?
How long? Mr. Sani, that's not the answer. Mr. Sani, how long will it take to print enough money to go round? How long?
How long does it take when you have a policy to print the money and make it available before the beginning of the implementation of the policy?
Yes,
that's the question you ask them.
You tell us. You have been a director of a bank. You might have some insight.
Yes. No, I don't have that kind of insight. I'm not I'm not a central bank director. I didn't work in the central bank, so I don't know how long it takes. But I don't think it should take that long. And if it should take that long, then print the money before the date of commencement of your policy, so that people will not suffer. It will be seamlessly done.
The challenge for you,
in this case, is not seamlessly done.
Yeah, the challenge for you is the process and the timing. Or what exactly is the challenge that you think we have on our hands?
the social disruption, because money is the element that controls, you know, every activity that the common Nigeria or the masses, you know, engage in. And here you are, you have disrupted everything that the people are doing, and you say within 2 weeks you'll correct it. How? Which magic are you going to perform?
While the reality, you know,
it has never happened.
While the reality stares us in the face, Mr. Sonny, there are those who also believe that there is no best time or bad time to do anything. At the end of the day, it's whether or not it gets done. Because there are those who would also argue that, look, even though the disruptions are there, the pains are there, even I think I remember the candidates of the Labour Party also saying that Nigerians should bear with the federal government because the pains of this is going to be gains of this period is going to bring a lot of gain to the people in no distant future. The realities are that people are having problems, but then can you argue against the validity or the idea of the policy itself?
No, you see, this policy is not something that is alien to other, you know, economies, for instance. I mean, it's something that is common, but it's never done like this. I don't know which country changes their currency within 2 weeks. You know, or how many weeks they are given, or 3 months they say, you know. In other climes, you allow the thing to go on, you know, and then seamlessly, people are not taken through any difficulties. You don't dislocate their businesses, you know, when they are battling with, you know, these horrendous situations that we have in terms of economic retrogression that we have in this country. People are battling with poverty, they are battling with insecurity, and you now come and add, you know, this kind of draconian law that has no meaning, you know, in terms of what you want to achieve. You know, it's only the enemy of the state that will introduce this kind of thing so that the elections themselves will not even take place, or when it takes place under a situation that you can't guarantee, you know, free, fair, and credible election. Because this is completely bad, you know, as timing and everything that you want to talk about it, if you want to be sincere to yourselves.
When you say timing,
it's not the right time.
When you say timing, the questions abound, you know, are about whether or not the timing of anything is ever perfect. It is not ever going to be a fantastic idea for people to go through pains to change their money.
The timing.
Just a second.
No,
at the time when,
just one second,
Mr. Sonny. Yeah. At the time that Nigerians were urged to go get their national identity numbers, people also talked about timing. So many things that we've come up with in this country, a number of issues were raised about timing. Now, what is the problem with the timing of this one? Is it in the duration or the fact that it is coming just before the elections?
Because money is at the bottom of everything that you do as a human being, you know, in an economic system like Nigeria. Cash matters, you know, it's not, and then timing cannot be things that cannot be right. Look at UK, they're changing, you know, they're putting the King Charles picture on the pound sterling. They didn't say that the one that is carrying the mother's, you know, picture is no longer valid, and it will go on for how many years, who knows. And then look at America, they change their dollars, you know, the biggest economy in the world. They don't rush people and then torture people unnecessarily, that you have to go and buy your own money, you have to go and queue, you know. I mean, this is wrong. Don't color it. Don't give it any. Call the spade by its name, not anything. So that the people who are in charge should sit up and do something more credible that will tell people that there's no conspiracy anywhere.
Okay. So if you say there is a conspiracy, are you alleging that there is a conspiracy somewhere? Can you sound an idea that this is where this conspiracy is coming from? Is it against the elections? Is it against the people? Where exactly would you say this sabotage is coming from? And why?
If I say conspiracy, I'm not the first person to say it. Even in the villa, they are calling themselves, they say one, they have a clique, they have this and that, who are against this, against that. So what is that? What do you call that if it's not conspiracy? Against themselves. This country is bigger than all of us put together. So we must address things in the proper way. We mustn't take things for granted. People should not be carried I mean, as people who don't have anything upstairs.
But where would you say it is coming from? And why?
I mean, I say people, Erufai and what have you, have been calling themselves names. That is the government for you today. They are supposed to be the most sane, organized human beings that we should have. That should be saying things that will keep this country one and give us confidence that we are in safe hands. That is not happening. I'm not happy.
All right, then. So, Mr. Yabagi, as we wind down on this one, it just about your presidential candidacy.
Yeah.
Is that getting traction?
Oh, I'd say very much so.
How?
Very much
because you're pushing. You have a different style.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we are engaging directly with key stakeholders, people you call gatekeepers. We are talking to them, and they are listening to us, because they know that this country is like an accident waiting to happen. We can't afford it. We can't afford that accident to happen.
Who are the gatekeepers?
Oh, like we were in Imo a few days ago. We talked to people that we're supposed to talk to. Some of them we don't even have to come to television to, show that, because this is not a jamboree, and this is not what do you call it, beauty contest or something like that. This is a serious business.
You've heard
of in this country.
You've heard of the top contenders for this election.
Yes.
Your name or your political party is not one of those mentioned.
Oh, well, that's what I'm telling you. I call you, look at what happened in Osun. I always tell people that. Osun State.
What happened in Osun?
Our party came third, in spite of all the noise made by other parties, this and that, what have you. The off-season election conducted in Osun.
So what are you saying this time?
So in this time, wait and see. We are working. We are connecting with people that matter.
Where do you rank yourself, your party?
We are the party to beat, but wait until it happens.
The party to beat?
Yes.
Okay, as you said, we will wait. I mean,
by all things, if you look at our manifesto, I'm sure it's the manifesto that is on point, as to what this country requires in terms of growing the economy.
As always,
together,
the people will decide
that. The global economy.
The electorate will decide.
Exactly.
We thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Yabagi is the national chairman of ADP and the presidential candidate as well. Thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you, Chairman.
We're back in a moment. Don't go away.
Lawyers and supporters of the People's Democratic Party in Taraba State are in the courtroom as the Supreme Court takes a decision on the authentic candidate of the party for the March 11 governorship election. The court had taken arguments in the case filed by one of the aspirants for the People's Democratic Party Taraba State governorship ticket, Professor Jerome Nyame, who had argued that the eventual winner, Mr. Kefas Agbu, did not get the party's nomination form and expression of interest form. He also argues that Mr. Agbu was the state chairman of the party as at the time of the party primary. However, the five-man panel of justices led by Justice Emmanuel Agim dismissed the suit on the grounds that they lack merit and were deemed premature. The court further states that the failure of the appellants to include other aspirants who took part in the primary at the early stages of the trial robbed them of the right to a fair hearing.
The truth is that if the persons who took this case to court had listened to wise counsel, there was absolutely no need to have approached the court in the first place. The political parties have internal dispute resolution mechanisms, and it is indeed one of the reasons why the appeal was dismissed, that the appellants did not resort to the internal dispute resolution mechanism of the party before approaching the court, and that approaching the appeal panel of the political party is one of the conditions precedent for there to be a course of action in challenging the outcome of a primary election. So that's it.
The Court of Appeal in Yola, Adamawa State, had affirmed Mr. Agbu as the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Taraba State, dismissing the appeal brought by Professor Nyame, challenging the ruling of the Federal High Court, Jalingo, which upheld the PDP primary in the state.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed, Senator Yusuf joins us here on the 2023 verdict. Next, he is a senator, yes, and a governorship aspirant of the Adama's APC. Well, Senator, Taraba, I beg your pardon. But what is going on with that case at the moment? Are you still in the race? Has the party decided what to do? Is everybody coming together and singing from the same hymn sheet now?
Well, I know my own appeal, comes up on the 13th of this month at the Supreme Court, so I'm still expecting that.
You didn't withdraw it after the Supreme Court decision?
No, I didn't withdraw.
Why not?
Why should I withdraw?
I thought this one says, okay, go ahead and do
We have different cases, we have different facts, and then we have different parties.
So what do you want this time, the case?
Well, I want us to have, to a repeat of the primaries, at my reliefs, at the Federal High Court, Abuja. I asked for that relief. So, but I'm aware my sister case did not ask for that relief, at Jalingo. So our case, I want us to go back to primaries, so long as, it is feasible to do that.
But isn't it technically the same thing with the Supreme Court ruling, which sacked Senator Boacha, and then everybody's going to go back and have a fresh primary?
Well, my understanding is that, the Supreme Court based its own, judgment on the reliefs that, the David Sabo Kentes case, asked Federal High Court Jalingo to give. I'm not aware, David Kente actually asked for a rerun of the primaries.
But that's what the Supreme Court ordered.
Now, the Supreme Court did not order for a repeat of primaries as far as that case is concerned. Because what they say, the reliefs 1 to 8, are granted. So it is relief 9. No, not relief 9. It is order 9 of the court, that has become odious and is discontinuance. That is the position of the Supreme Court.
So at the end of the day, is Senator Boacha not going to participate in the primary? Should there be a fresh primary?
My understanding is Section 84, subsection 13 of the Electoral Act has actually, disqualified Senator Emmanuel Boacha from contesting any other election, having not emerged from a credible, fair, free, credible, and legal primaries conducted by APC.
Section 8, subsection 13, did you say?
Section 84, subsection 13 is very, very clear.
Well, that's the same one that we've been quoting earlier in the case regarding the emergence of Senator Ahmed Lawan. Look at this. It says, where a political party fails to comply with the provisions of this act in the conduct of its primaries, its candidates for election shall not be included in the election for the particular position in issue. Is that what you're quoting?
Yeah.
I don't see how does it relate to Senator Boacha in this?
Senator Boacha, according to the party, was nominated, on the list of INEC. But the court said there was no credible primary. So the party has failed to organize, a credible election. And as a result of that, he is disqualified by this section of the Electoral Act.
Well, while we wait to see, because you have said you have filed your own appeal and you're hoping that it will, the ruling will be given very soon. Is it next week, you said?
Yes, next week, Monday.
So next week, Monday, we look forward to seeing how the Supreme Court will rule on that same matter. There have been internal wranglings. Let me just quickly clarify. Did you pick up a ticket to run again for Senate, just in case?
No.
You didn't make it?
No, I made up my mind, 2-term Senate, that's it.
Because you would have been disqualified as a competitive aspirant.
I did it.
You cannot participate in 2 separate elections.
Would he have been disqualified? Because he would have been... he would have to be a candidate first, yes.
And then come back to maybe the court would have thought otherwise.
Yes, some people say that maybe you missed an opportunity there, considering the verdict that Senator Lawan just got from the Supreme Court. But I am just a little curious, and you can comment on that if you want to, but I am a little curious as to how you're looking at the wranglings within your political party at the moment. There are those, you saw the outburst of, well, I say it was an outburst now, of Governor El Rufai on Friday last week, talking about the currency swap issue, which has caused quite a bit of furore and caused many Nigerians to be angry because of the difficulty they're currently experiencing. And I'm wondering, as a member of the APC, are you concerned about how your party is currently handling this crisis?
Well, you see, when you try to mix finance with economics, with politics, with elections, you certainly you'll have a lot of issues, to contend with. As far as I am concerned, currency swap is not a political issue. It is an economic issue. So, but people try to make it a political issue, and that's why we have problem now. For me, the government has decided to swap the currency, to change the color of the currency. Why do we do that? An economy like Nigeria, you have over 2 trillion out of the banking system. Out of the banking system, how will central bank now control money supply, to control inflation, to control, to control monetary, issues and what have you? For me, there is no specific time for CBN, to do such a thing. It does that at the right time, that it feels or it gauges, the sound of the economy, that it is time to do this. In fact, for me, it's even quite late. They ought to have done it much, much earlier. However, it's better to be late than never. How can you not control money, 2 trillion out of the banking system, and you say you want to do politics? How can you do that?
But Senator, I think that some think that they don't have any disagreement with CBN performing that function, but they have got challenges with the amount of time given for that to happen.
That is the issue. What is about time? What is about time? For me, that time they are talking about is not an issue at all. If we think out of the box, is this thing that can be done within a week, within 10 days, within 2 weeks at most? Is it not swapping the whole currency, into the banking system?
No, sir. That's not what is happening. You've heard the CBN governor say that he wants, as much as possible, this cashless policy to happen. So much as 2 trillion is coming back, or they're expecting as much as 2 trillion back into the banking system. They're printing about perhaps a fifth of that. That's what is going to be in circulation, because they want more transactions to be done via the many e-platforms that will now exist, or that now exist amongst the banks. And it seems that is where there is a problem, where there is cash scarcity.
Since when has the cashless policy of the federal government, started? It started long, long ago.
Indeed.
So it is matter of people, accepting the reality on the ground, that Nigeria is a global is in a global village, and it has to operate within the realism of economic globalization, in terms of we cannot just sit down and say cash, cash, cash all the time. People should learn to live within that system of transacting businesses without holding cash.
How easy is this? You are from Taraba. You represent a constituency in Taraba. How far down would you say that this policy, or this cashless policy, has permeated even the rural areas where you come from?
I agree there's a challenge there, but it's not a challenge that you cannot overcome. Like I said, let's think out of there is no village that you don't have a village head.
Can it be overcome in 10 days?
Why not? If we are serious, it can.
Doesn't mean you disagree with Senator Ndume's position that this policy, it's not, his people cannot meet up with this time?
Well, I think, if we do it and we are sincere, let even the politician participate. If we are credible politicians, we have, our local rulers and what have you. Is it not swapping the money from what you have with the new one? What is the difficulty there? And people are thinking that if you have 3 trillion and the 3 trillion must be pumped into the system again, that cannot happen. All the monies that are, most of the money that are brought in for swapping, most of them, maybe 80% of that, are 1,000 Naira notes. And people have not observed that. So people collected 1,000 Naira notes, stocked them in their houses, and how many common people have stocked in the 1,000 Naira notes?
But Senator, I mean, we've seen several videos of regular people who go to the banks, because this policy is one thing on paper, but in reality, some even go there, you see all sorts of fisticuffs, all sorts of scenarios playing out. People put in 100,000 Naira, they think, yes, if it's just a swap, I put that amount in, I get that amount back. And the banks tell them, well, from the videos we've seen, some of them say, no, you can't tell me I can get only 20,000 Naira, and they will not have it. So that is several people's reality about this policy.
So it is a matter of sensitization. This thing started since about when? October, November?
No. The swap itself, I mean, that's when the announcement was made. But the swap itself started in December.
Well, if it started in December, that does not mean that, it cannot be concluded within this specific period. You see, people think that I put my 10,000, give me back my 10,000. So the money is not going to remain in bank again. So the money again is out. So what is the purpose of the policy? The policy is let us retain money in the banking system, encourage people to do this electronic banking, such that...
That's the thing. Encourage people.
Yes.
But the people don't feel encouraged. They feel compelled. If you have to encourage them to put their money in the bank, there have to be incentives. They don't see any incentives.
That is what I said, What incentives do people want that is not going to be given to them? All what I'm saying, in fact, for me, for me, even the CBN, very soft.
Really?
Honestly, for me, reduce the printing of 1,000 Naira notes, 500 Naira notes, and even 200 Naira notes. Print only 100 Naira notes.
Whoa.
So if you print only 100 Naira notes, anybody that wants the money, give them the 100 Naira
even
notes.
With the inflationary scenario.
The most popular currency of United States of America is a $100 bill. The most popular of United Kingdom, a pound sterling is 50. The most popular in Nigeria is 1,000. Can you see the contradiction that we have put ourselves into?
Is it a question of contradiction? Because the highest denomination, as you have noticed, for those countries are their most popular notes. I mean, if the highest, I've never seen a $200 bill before. It's only a $100 bill that is the maximum. I've not seen any other bill beyond a £50 note. And Nigeria has as its highest denomination 1,000 Naira. So what exactly is odd? We're comparing like for like.
No, that is elitist.
And we're not even comparing the value of what it is that these things can buy. What it is that $100 will buy today is not what a 1,000 Naira will buy.
That is why I say it is elitist, Maope. It is elitist when they put this 1,000. Was there any need for 1,000 Naira bill? Was there any need for even 500? Was there even need for, how do you even control inflation when you have too much money pursuing little things? Make small money to pursue big things, and then you'll control the economy. For a long time, this economy has been going on in one way or the other.
Is it about the money or what we produce, Senator?
Of course, it's both. Of course, we are talking about demand and supply. If you don't have money, you are going to adjust your demand.
Talking about demand and adjusting demand, I mean, we've seen that only recently, the president, before the Senate went on recess, the president, made a request asking that the ways and means about 2 trillion Naira in debt be adjusted, be restructured. Otherwise, Nigeria could be in trouble. There's been no resolution reached on that by the National Assembly before it went on recess. And people are wondering when exactly is the National Assembly going to take a stand on the president's request?
Our committee is working on that. I mean, the committee of the Senate working on that. And the matter is so simple. I don't know why people want to make it so complicated. If it is just restructuring, yes, we know that, the policy over a period of time has not been managed well. The ways and means advances, is supposed to be, 5% of the previous, revenue. So, and it has to be cleared within a year cycle. But that has not been done over a period of time. It has been accumulated over a period of time. What do we do? That has already been done. So we have to find the best way to do it. They cannot securitize it. The CBN Act, I think Section 38, if I remember very well, has stopped securitization of that. But if we talk about restructuring, then, we are talking about a 40-year money, at a certain percentage, to be restructured. For me, it's something that can be done. The damage has already been done. What do we do?
How hefty is this damage in your own estimation?
Well, if we are talking about 22 to 23.7 trillion naira, it is a big sum of money, about $50 billion thereabout. That's what we are talking about. IT is large, but what do we do in the circumstances? Every section of the country has benefited from this. The local governments, the state governments, the federal governments, and even the COVID and what have you. So many things has happened.
So you think that every section of the country should pay for it?
Not to pay, but to participate in how best we can solve the problem. And I think when we come back on the 20th of this month after the 25th election, by then, our committee would have, sat down and look at it. We have gotten all the details that we may require, and therefore we look at it and let's see the best way we can restructure the ways and means advances.
All right, as we wind down on this one, Senator, I mean, different scenarios playing out now. For instance, the debt profile that the next government will inherit, over 70 trillion, as has been publicized. And then less than 18 days or 19 days to election, the fuel scarcity challenge bite hard, the currency redesign, different policies just intended to squeeze Nigerians. They don't seem to find it funny at the moment, coupled with the inflationary rate. And one sits back and wonder, how does a party approach this kind of scenario or allow these kind of things to happen in an election year? Is there something going on? Is the party trying to throw these elections or what?
Let me tell you, sir, this party has left its own ways of participating in governance. APC has not participated in governance. I don't think APC since 2015 has in any particular year delved seriously on the budget of the federal government. They ought to have even prepared their own budget, the national budget, for the purpose of discussing with government, for the purpose of discussing with National Assembly, for the purpose of discussing with others. APC has not done that as a party. And if you have a manifesto, and then you are not partaking, you are not participating effectively, in running of the governance, and you say you sit down, well, we are a party, we have government, and therefore let government do whatever, whether the government does the manifesto or it does not follow the manifesto of the party as far as we are concerned, so be it. For me, the party has been negligent over a period of time in terms of participating effectively in the governance of this country.
So it is only fair that the party be punished? If it loses, you will not be surprised?
I don't want to look at it from the point of punishment. I want to look at it from the view of understanding, something that ought to have been done which was not done. And then how do we effectively, mention it to the Nigerian people that, we are in the process of making good of what we didn't do, now we will do.
Isn't that too late now?
It is not too late. 24 hours in politics is a long period of time.
I thought some of your colleagues say, if by now the electorate who have made up their minds, it will be difficult to change.
Maybe not, Because as far as I'm concerned, I've been in election at least in 2015, 2019. Sometimes, within 24 hours, you sit down and you negotiate and you get the kind of votes you will get.
Well, I know Senator decamp a lot, so maybe that might have been
I have never decamped. My only party that I've ever known is APC, and you can see I have my APC ring with me, and I'm going to work for APC.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Senator.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
He's a governorship aspirant for Taraba State. All the best. Yeah. Let's take a look at some messages coming through from you now. Well, yes, we did say we're going to go ahead and do that. So this very first one comes from Adeyemi Oladele about currency redesign. He says, money changing or redesign happens all over the world, but in other countries, the new notes are allowed to go side by side with the old ones till the old notes get out of circulation. The people are suffering, not the politicians.
And this one is from Kenneth, who says the judiciary is supposedly independent arm of government. It's said to be the last hope of the common man. Indeed, it is the common man who is often most adversely affected as a result of the lingering problems of the judiciary in Nigeria. It's therefore regrettable that the image of the judiciary has been tarnished by the notion that the Nigerian judiciary is bedeviled by corrupt elements, hence the need for an image-building parade. Now, members of the public should stop giving bribes to judicial officers, and the full weight of the law should descend heavily on both the givers and takers of bribes so as to eradicate this evil menace.
Well, the judiciary is also heavy on the mind of Joseph Oludari. He says, it is painful and confusing that our court system has jettisoned morality completely. The winner of an election now loses on the ground of technicalities. The substance of justice is being defeated systematically. Should court be a validator of popular mandate?
While you mull over that question, Immaculate says in a tweet, we should be careful. We should be careful as a society, and we should be careful as a society what and whom we're abdicating power to. As it stands, a political party can conduct a particular primaries multiple times, and if INEC, the supervisory body, doesn't monitor it, it simply doesn't matter. Oh dear.
There's one more from Professor Nakina, who says, country witnessing a hyperinflation, oil theft, operating a mono economy, and there's dearth of SMEs, which is the economic backbone or grit of Western economies because of single digits in the interest rates on borrowing. Hoarders of Naira are economic saboteurs. Yes, that's what he said.
I wonder what that means to hoard Naira. If it's your, I don't know. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time on the 2023 verdict. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank you for watching. I still can't believe how 3 hours flies really quickly. Thank you. And Maokbe Ogun Yusuf, thank you for your feedback as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. 3 hours ran by, interestingly so, and tomorrow won't be any different. So join us again. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And if you've not gotten your PVC, I don't know. My name is Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.